meeting to order. I hereby call to order the remote teleconference standing committee. Regular meetings of the Texas Southern University Board of Regents on June 25th, 2020 at approximately 8:32 a.m. And I certify that we are in compliance with provisions of Section 551041 and 551045 of Texas Government Code pursuant to public notice of this meeting and as allowed by the Texas Attorney General's issuance of temporary suspensions to certain open meeting laws due to COVID-19 epidemic and closures. Thank you all for joining this teleconference this morning. There are those that will be listening live by live stream, which is always open for the public to join during scheduled meetings time. Obviously, we're very appreciative of the Attorney General for suspending certain meeting laws to allow us to have this meeting in this format during this health crisis. So I ask that everybody that's on the call today be patient, be respectful as we go forward. We have a lot to discuss, a lot to do, and a lot to get taken care of in the window of opportunity that's presented to us today on during this time. I'd like to move forward and start with a prayer. I believe we're going to have Deacon Terry Garner, a proud graduate of this university. Deacon Garner received a full athletic scholarship for basketball to attend HBU right down the road, but he chose Texas Southern for his collegiate studies. He has a daughter that's also an alum, and currently his granddaughter, which is, I think this is where he should be extremely proud. His granddaughter is on the honor roll here at the university, and I congratulate her for achieving that honor. Deacon Garner is a member of the Creston Missionary Baptist Church and serves as a trustee at his Sunday school. He is a retired HISD educator, and I don't know how you retired twice, and a retired 25-year Houston Health Department employee. He is a master gardener and serves on several garden committees in the area. His motto is to share what you know and share what you grow. I think that's a great motto. Deacon Garner, will you lead us in prayer? If Deacon Garner is not here, Deacon Garner, if you're not on the line. Hello?
I heard him call in. Don't know if he's muted or not.
I don't know. Reason. Faith, if you're listening up here, can you find out if Deacon Garner is on the line, if he's muted?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes. We can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, Deacon Garner?
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you for joining us.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Let us bow our heads, eyes closed. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Almost gracious and merciful Father, we humbly come before you this morning, thanking you for the many blessings that you bestowed upon us. God, you woke us up this morning to see a day we've never seen and will never see again. And for that, dear God, we just want to say thank you. Lord, we ask you to forgive us of our sins. If you find anything in our hearts and minds that's unpleasing to your will, Lord, we ask that you remove it and throw it off into the sea of forgiveness, never to come to shore again. And for that, again, dear God, we just want to find and thank you for the many blessings. We find ourselves, dear Heavenly Father, going through some difficult times now, but we realize that there is nothing too hard for you, dear Heavenly Father. Lord, I pray for those who are sick and those families who have lost loved ones due to this coronavirus. Lord, you give them peace, strength, and understanding during these times that only you can give. And dear God, I ask that you bless this meeting and provide the wisdom and knowledge that only you can provide. For we know If you instruct a wise man, he too will become wise. Lord, I pray for our HBCUs and every student that walks through these doors, that they become positive contributors to our society, and especially those that, Heavenly Father, will pave the way in going on. The Dr. Freemans, the administrators, the Jordans, the students, the presidents, and Lord, we ask that you come into our hearts today and make your presence felt. I ask these blessings in your daughter and son Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Deacon Garner, for that prayer. We'd like to hear more somewhere down the road about your garden techniques.
Well,
Considering
I
yourself
teach
a
a free
master
garden
gardener.
class. I teach a free garden class every third Saturday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the beautiful Palm Center Community Garden.
Excellent to know. I hope everybody heard that, because right now with COVID-19, we need to learn how to plant a garden, that's for sure. But we thank
And
you,
remember,
Deacon Garner.
thank you. May God
Thank
bless
you so much.
you. This is my prayer.
Thank you. We're going to go right into the roll call. Ms. Ruiz, if you can get us into the roll call, that'll be most appreciated.
Regent Albert Myers.
Present.
Regent Mark Carter.
Present.
Regent Pamela Medina.
Present.
Regent Ron Price. Regent Marilyn Rose. Regent Wesley Terrell. Student Regent Joseph Johnson.
Present.
Regent Marilyn Rose. Regent Wesley Terrell. Is Regent Marilyn Rose or Regent Wesley Terrell on the line?
Yes, present. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you. Regent
Yes.
Terrell?
I'm present. Am
Great.
I unmuted now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ruiz. We're going to go into the open forum. As if many of you should, if you know the rules here, we all have allocated about 3 minutes to speak. The one thing that I would ask this morning is that we just all be respectful and cordial in our remarks, and productive in our remarks in terms of what points we're trying to make. So I'd like to start off with SGA President, Mrs. Burley. Are you on the line?
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. How are you all?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Let me know whenever my time starts.
I'm starting right now.
Greetings and humble salutations, honorable meetings. My name is Kanaya Burley, and I have been selected on behalf of the student body to serve as the Student Government Association president for the academic school year. It's truly an honor and a privilege to serve in this capacity, and I'm very eager to work with each and every one of you throughout this year. As a leader, transparency and communication are essential to working with administration, and I hope to apply the same mindset when working with you all as well. With that being said, I did want to bring up a few points that the students have on their radar during this time. The first one being the reopening and transition back on campus this fall. I have been working with Dr. McKinney and Dean Bennett to make sure that the communication and understanding on behalf of the students is there. And then two, the naming of the new library and the suggestion of Dr. Freeman's name to be put on there. I know it's a lot of questions. Can you all hear me still?
We can hear you.
Okay. I know there's a lot of questions, and that decisions were made prior to this year on behalf of the library. However, but to close out, as we continue to push through this year against adversity, we ask that you all continue to keep the important people in mind, which are the students, and to always do right and just on behalf of them. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Burley, for your comment.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Burley.
Thank you.
Thank you all for having me.
Let me also say, if you are not speaking, can you put your phone on mute, or however you're signed in, just mute it so we can hear the speakers clearly without too much interruption. Mrs. Jackson, Chair of our Staff Council, Melanie Jackson, are you on the line?
Good morning. Yes, I am, Chairman Myers.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Myers, esteemed board members, President Hewitt, and the rest of the TSU family. At this time, on behalf of Staff Council, we would like to thank all of those staff members that have tirelessly worked to keep the university safe, clean, and maintained while most of us are working from home. We would like to specifically thank facilities and maintenance personnel, buildings and grounds, the Office of Information Technology, HR Payroll, Treasury, and Procurement Services staff, as well as the Post Office. We cannot thank these unsung heroes enough, and many cannot wait to return to campus to thank them personally. During these times of uncertainty, Staff Council has been active in several initiatives to ease some of the anxiety and stress related to returning to campus. On June 11th, Staff Council hosted a virtual town hall meeting featuring Cabinet Member Yolanda Edmond to address staff questions and concerns. Also, on June 11th, Staff Council members executed a campus walkthrough to identify areas where signage and protective equipment should be installed. And then on June 18th, Staff Council also assembled a group of staff volunteers to assist in posting safety signage in and around the TSU campus and inside of the buildings on campus. Staff Council appreciates the support we receive from the Board of Regents, Mr. Hewitt, and Cabinet. Thank you for your leadership during this pandemic to ensure the safety and success of our staff, faculty, and students for the upcoming school year. In closing, Staff Council is anticipating the return to campus, and we will continue to serve as the voice for TSU staff members in sharing their concerns and promoting a collaborative and productive work environment. Thank you for your time, board members, and we remain TSU proud.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Next will be Mrs. Wu, President of the Faculty Senate. Is Edith there, Ms. Wu? If need be, we will come back to.
Yes, Regent Myers, I'm here.
Oh,
this
good morning.
Good morning. I think she unmuted me. Yes, this is Edith Wu, but before I get started, Regent Myers, I would like to ask, pertaining to or under the authority of the board bylaw, section 8.266C, like Charlie, I would like to ask for 7 minutes extra time in order to make a short presentation, and if that's not amenable to you, I would ask for a minimum of 5 minutes extra. And it may not take that, but I don't want to rush the 2 items that I have.
Dr. Wu, maybe you didn't get the communications, but I had sent a note to Faith suggesting you that we're okay with the 5 minutes or 7 minutes that you needed. So glad to have you on board and speaking to us this morning. So you have your time.
Okay, thank you so much. And Faith, Miss Ruiz, if you can signal me at like 1 minute, I'd appreciate it. But I think I'll be able to get through it. Okay, thank you so much, Regent Myers. Good morning to Regent Myers and the Honorable Regents. Again, this is Edith Wu. I am the chair of the Faculty Senate. I have 2 items. One is item 9B, which is the candidates for the rank and tenure, promotion and tenure, but I will not expound on that because I've already spoken to President Hewitt, and he will address those important and pressing concerns later. The next item, 12D, naming of the LLC, actually overlaps with 9B. But as I said, President Hewitt will address that later. When I heard that the universities properly impaneled and approved naming committee had voted in the affirmative on the naming of the LLC, I knew I had to speak. I've been at TSU for about 27 years, and sometimes at TSU we disagree, sometimes we agree to disagree, and sometimes we really don't know some of the facts that are pertinent to whatever it is that we need to move forward. Faculty will agree on certain things, that we have a property interest in tenure and promotion, and that we have academic freedom and autonomy, which are non-negotiable. I do as well. I have and will continue to fight for them. But when I heard that Dr. Rutley when Dr. Rutley was here and I heard the information about the LLC, I figured that I was in a good position to speak to certain things. I'm going to speak first to a situation that we had with rank and tenure. There's a statement, and actually it's biblical. It says, "Give honor where honor is due," and I try to do that, and my record speaks for that. But when Dr. Rutley was here, I had many audiences with Dr. Rutley. I was a senator, and I also was the faculty senate chair for 2 years during that time. Once we had a serious meeting and problems with rank and tenure, Dr. Rutley gave me several times over the whole course, but Dr. Rutley gave me an audience. I've spoken to several members of the faculty who were actually denied because I didn't always win, but I went in to win. I went in to fight. There was an assistant professor who his record was overwhelming, and he told me that if I needed to use his name, I could. But, Doc, I'm not going to use your name, but you know who you are if you're listening. He was about to lose his job. He was in his 6th year. To me, as a scholar, I thought he warranted promotion, and the powers that be did not seem to think that. But I went to Dr. Rutley, and Dr. Rutley and I slugged it out. But he listened, and I was able to overcome and get that approval, and there were reversals. There was another person who was an associate professor moving to full. Same thing. She also gave me the right to use her name today. She said, both people said, use your discretion, Dr. Wu. But I will not use their names, but if need be, we can state that. But I just want to say on several occasions, Dr. Rutley was down in the weeds, if you will, for the faculty. And it's not just those two. There are more. I had some denials, but we took them on the chin and went on. When Dr. Rutley was here, the state of Texas reduced TSU's $85 million OCR allocations. Dr. Rutley went to work. It took several legislative sessions, but I put a check. He got that money back. We need that money. We still rely on that OCR money. Also, we were on SACS probation. Everybody knows that. That's checkable. And that was due to serious financial issues. And that's one reason I'm embracing my president now, because I call him a bean counter. But Dr. Rutley was able to help us with that. Individual colleges have accreditation, which are important. But without the SACS accreditation, we can do nothing. So that was a check. During my Senate days, Dr. Rutley actually named Dr. Freeman as the founding dean of the Honors College, and later suggested the naming of the college to Dr. Freeman. I love Dr. Freeman. I was a debate coach with Dr. Freeman. I traveled overseas with Dr. Freeman. I give my money to the Honors College. But I thought Dr. Rutley was going to be impeached. It was such an uproar. But he listened, tempers calmed, and we were able to actually move with that as the interim, and then we followed some, I guess, wrangling, and Dr. Freeman was later named the permanent and inaugural dean of that college. So that was Dr. Rutley, who almost lost his bacon for making a great decision at that time. Also, the faculty senate should remember that we had no home. They tore down the Senate House, so we were nomads. But Dr. Rutley approved a build-out in Hannah Hall for the faculty senate. Diane Jimerson.
Doctor, will you have 1 minute? Doctor, will you have 1 minute?
1 minute, okay. Diane Nicholson Jones did a build-out. All of us got offices, including the palatial office for the coordinator. Dr. Rutley promised the Senate that we would have a permanent home in the LLC once it was done. It's there. If he were here, I'd have another audience because the space is too small, but he can't do anything. In conclusion, I work for the collective. That's the faculty and the university. That's the collective. I have to speak. I would be remiss as chair and as a decent person, God-fearing person, if I would withhold the truth. I have been told that I speak truth to power. Yes, I do. But I always try to speak truth when truth is needed, when it's undeniably verifiable, but most of all, I do not hold grudges when I lose, and I did lose some, or when someone disagrees. Thanks a million for your time, and again, this is Edith Wu, a 27-year warrior at Texas Southern University. In the legacy of George Floyd, let us stand up as a people and do what's right. Thank you, Regent Myers, rest of the Regent, and my constituency, which is Texas Southern University, and every faculty and employee on the campus. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Wu, thank you for your comment. We will now hear from Dr. Ford. Dr. Ford, are you on the line? Hello. Dr. Ford?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you. If everybody can put their lines on mute, that'll be most appreciated. Dr. Ford, you have your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Regents. I want to talk about two items very briefly. The first one has to do with the admissions requirement that the board adopted at its June 1st conference call meeting. And I'm going to be very brief on this one. I would challenge the university to apply your COVID standards for admissions to the current TSU enrolled student body and determine how many of them would have been admitted using a 3.0 GPA and 25% standing in a class. That's all I want to say on that one, because I think if you do that analysis, you'll realize that we're probably putting ourselves in a bad position relative to recruitment. The second matter has to do with tenure and promotion. That's item 9B. One of the gentlemen who applied for advancement by promotion from assistant professor to associate professor is Dr. Bruce. Last name is, Bruce's name is escaping me. If we come back. Bruce happens to be one of 3 African-American faculty members in the chemistry department of 13 faculty members. That's an indictment in and of itself, because given our student composition, I doubt if many people realize that if Bruce is no longer with the department, we'll be down to 15% African-American faculty in a department where 80+% of our students are African-American. Bruce was recommended by his department chair, his college dean. He was denied at the level of the provost. He then appealed. The appeals committee agreed that he should be tenured and promoted, yet the provost again declined. Unfortunately, it took about 30 days for the provost to get that notice of his final decision to Mr. Bruce, and Juneteenth was the day he received the letter telling him that he would not be recommended for promotion and tenure. As a result, he did not have time to carry out an appeal to the board or to the president. And as a result, I think he's being denied due process in his attempt to receive the requested tenure and promotion. Finally, I'll say this. The man's record speaks for itself, and I think the president has his record. His credentials far exceed what he believes to be the policy that will govern his movement from assistant to associate professor. There is some confusion about which policy should be applied, and I think the board and the president should take the time to clarify the policy that applies and to take into account Mr. Bruce's standing as an African-American faculty member. I don't want to make this racial, but I can guarantee you there are too many studies that suggest that African-American faculty members are better advisors and mentors to African-American students. And I don't think we should pass up the opportunity to deal with that. And on a larger note, if you look in the College of Science, Engineering, and Technology, and I serve on the advisory board after having spent 9 years as a faculty member in the chemistry department, you will find that there is a scarcity of black faculty. We must, as an institution, do more to dig deeper and wider to find African-American faculty members in chemistry, in computer science, where there's only one faculty member that's African-American. He happens to be 80 years old. In engineering, those are critical STEM areas where students need appropriate mentoring. So I'm challenging the board and the administration to develop a process for recruiting quality African-American faculty members. And I can help you do that. I've been in this HBCU community for 44 years. That's what I wanted to share with the board. I would recommend that you reverse the decision or the recommendation by the provost and continue and promote Mr. Bruce. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ford, for your comment. Next, we will have Miss Victoria Gray. Mrs. Gray, are you, Ms. Gray, are you on the line?
Good morning, yes. Someone needs to mute.
Can you please mute your phones, please?
Okay, good morning.
Okay.
Good morning. I'm a proud...
Can we all mute our phones while Mrs. Gray is speaking, please? Thank you. Ms. Gray? Did we lose Ms. Gray?
They keep muting me, so I'm here. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Please go forward. Thank you.
Yeah, when they muted everybody, they muted me as well. Well, good morning. I am a two-time alumna, scholar, and a life member. Let's talk about buildings and having a building named after you, which means you have done something extraordinary, that is. But today you want to vote to name the Library Learning Center after a president who students blame for a year-long delay in building a new dorm that caused students to live in hotels on the university's expense. You want to name a building, an entire building, after a president who was called the plantation president, who ruined the morale of the faculty and staff and nearly ran alumni away, and the one who the faculty senate declared a vote of no confidence in and moved to censure him. Censure, I said. Coincidentally, that's exactly what you did to Regent Price, who should have resigned on April 16th, the day after he decided to have a conversation with me, talk badly about you, his board peers, and regurgitated ridiculous rhetoric, further ruining the TSU brand and its reputation. And speaking of reputation, Your blood does not run maroon and gray like mine, because if it did, you wouldn't be trying to hire a firm based in Washington, D.C. for an amount not to exceed $192,000 for reputation management. Was there even a request for a proposal for this job? You caused this problem and will further ruin it, naming a building after Dr. Rudley. You continue to embarrass TSU. You ruined TSU's reputation, so you should pay for the reputation and damage control out of your own personal pockets. Better yet, ask your undergraduate alma maters to give you the money. Go serve on their boards and stop trying to make TSU something other than excellence and achievement. Naming a building after a legendary man, a powerhouse like Dr. Thomas F. Freeman, who left a legacy through his students, not through personal relationships and favors from buddies, will cause alumni to be overjoyed. And when members of my fellow alumni are happy, then giving increases. Just look at the giving under the 12th president, Dr. Lane, something Dr. Rudley did not do. You all make decisions that are self-serving, that benefit you and your comrades, and I bet you would also write resolutions to name all the buildings after yourselves if you could, instead of naming it after a man whose legacy will live on long after any president who has served at this Texas university. Regents, you have made many mistakes that I may forgive if you get this one right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Gray. Miss Gray?
Yes, thank you.
Next will be Mrs. Georgia Provost. Ms. Provost, are you on the line? Provost? If she's not, we'll continue forward, and if she gets on the line later, we want to give her time back to her.
Yes, sir. Hello, can you hear me?
Ms. Provost, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning, the Honorable Board of Regents. My name is Georgia Provost.
If she's not,
hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Can someone can all put their phone back on mute, please, so we can hear Ms. Provost. Ms. Provost, please continue. Thank you.
Good morning. Some people can't handle the truth. We have a lot of chatter and noise right now. Hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Ms. Provost. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. We have a lot of chatter and noise right about the naming of a building after two individuals that I love and had the pleasure of working with. Let's give credit where credit is due. Dr. Rudley, the 11th president of my TSU, fought to Austin for $80 million for the Learning Library. He was successful in obtaining $60 million, which was a hard fight, but he won. Dr. Rudley arrived at Texas Southern University and found two overpriced parking garages that he successfully negotiated $120 million to the amount that TSU could live with and could repay. He obtained $2 million to assist students in their junior and senior year. It was called Be On Time with the Helen Giddings Scholarship. He restored TSU Freeman legacy while he was still alive to see it by designating $400,000 a year in scholarship for honor students and allocating more than $500,000 to refurbish the library and naming the program in honor of Dr. Freeman. He obtained $2.7 million grant from the Houston Endowment to provide scholarships and housing for students who were the first in their family to attend college. Dr. Rudley recovered $33 million from the Hurricane Ike to restore losses on the campus. He led and rebranded the campus with a campaign. He accomplished three things: increased enrollment, enhanced the brand and image of TSU, and received support on a local, national, and international level. He built a pharmacy simulated lab so that the students can hone their skills as pharmacists in the real world. He brought TSU athletic program back from near death from the NCAA. making all alumni and athletes proud. Just ask Michael Strayhorn. Dr. Bradley restored TSU financial integrity. I wholeheartedly support the decision to name the library after someone who has made his mark on TSU landscape, his students, and his alumni. If you don't appreciate it today, I guarantee you appreciate it tomorrow. For your reason, this is the truth. Thank you. I love all of you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Thank you, Ms. Provost. Always good to hear your voice. Thank you for your comment. Next, we have Mr. King, Wendell King II, I believe.
Yes, sir. I'm here. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can. King, please
Okay.
go forward.
Okay. Again, my name is Wendell King II. I am a former student and debater at Texas Southern. I was president for 2 years. I also served as assistant coach at TSU for 11 years. I understand that there are a lot of people that are invested on both sides of this, and I completely understand that. But unlike most, I don't have any other motive. I wasn't given any extra thing or any lesson to my heart rather than my opportunity. As I began my preparation for this presentation, the first thing I thought about was my coach, Dr. Thomas Franklin Freeman. I allowed him to coach me from the grave. Even from his grave, he was able to tell me and guide me exactly on what to do. My first thought was to attack Dr. John Rutley and the many things that he did that were not good for the university. But then I thought about Dr. Freeman, and he would tell me to not focus on the who, but rather focus on the why. So I am going to negate from talking ill of Dr. Rutley and rather focus on Dr. Freeman. I represent the student that society may have looked over because of economic deprivations or social conditioning, the lack of fathers in the home, or low GPA. Just a student that's pretty much society had given up on. I represent the one that walked into that office feeling as though they were. And I'm speaking on behalf of a man that entered this campus in 1949 to serve 1 year. But because of students like Dr. James Race asking him to stay for an extra year to coach them, he did that for 70 more years thereafter. So he ended his career the exact same way he started his career. And that was with students in mind first. And I think that that is the why that we should be looking at. There is no financial quantitative way to actually measure the good that a man has done when he has touched so many lives over 7 decades. There is no way to quantitatively look at the good that a man has done when the first stop for every recruiter at Texas Southern is the debate office to meet Dr. Freeman, because they understand that that is the deal breaker. They understand that by putting TSU's debate team and Dr. Freeman in the front, it ensures great marketing strategies for the university. When the band went to Japan and had its fall, they leaned on the debate team. When the financial accreditation was falling, they leaned on Dr. Freeman and the debate team. When President Priscilla Slade went through her issue, they leaned on Dr. Freeman and the TSU debate team. So now is an opportunity to place his name on a building rather than a unit, and then have him celebrated for years to come. But instead, we choose to put the name of a person that did give 7 to 8 years to TSU and had some great moments, but he also had some bad moments. And I understand that we don't want to really focus on that because it doesn't feel good when we're speaking on behalf of someone because of what we are looking to get out of it. But I think what is more important is that we understand that what Dr. Freeman did for this university cannot be measured by any person on this phone call, because he started doing it possibly before every person on this phone call was even born. So I think that it would be an injustice to Dr. Thomas F. Freeman's legacy for us to continue to scream that his name is on the Honors College. The Honors College is not a building. Synonymous with emotions. Buildings are synonymous with experiences. And I think that that is where we fail. Dr. Rutley can go on something at some point, I'm sure. But I'm thinking that right now is a great opportunity for us to actually give the students, the community, and the alumni something they can be proud of, if that is what we want. I'm not about fighting with the Board of Regents. I'm not about fighting with community leaders. I'm not about fighting with faculty and staff. What I am about fighting for is somebody who touched my life that I can personally say that is the difference. Thank you.
Mr. King, thank you for your comment. Thank you for your comments. Miss Alicia Hughes, I believe is next. Miss Hughes?
You've got it correct. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Hello?
can. Thank you. Yes, we can hear you.
Wonderful. Such a privilege to be with you this morning. And I want to begin first by thanking each and every one of you for standing to arms and representing us as members of our Board of Regents. I've enjoyed listening. This is the first meeting I've attended of a Board of Regents in the last 25 years since I was student body president back in 1995. And before I go any further, I would like to ask that the statement that I emailed on last evening to all of you, I hope you've read because I will not rehash that statement this morning, that it be associated with item 12D on your agenda that deals with the naming for the Library Learning Center. Mr. Chairman, would it be possible to do that?
Ms. Hughes, yes, say that again. I did not get your last couple of words.
I said if we could just make sure that the statement that I sent last evening to the full board is associated with item 12D on today's agenda. I would like to make sure that it's tagged.
Yes, and just to be noted, I did read your statement and lengthy statement. You took a little time to write it, so I appreciate you taking the time to send that in.
My pleasure and the privilege, as a matter of fact. I do not want to focus very much on anything that's in it, aside from the fact that I want to talk about this morning inspiring a cultivation of giving with your alumni. And I want to talk about process just a little bit, and I have shared the same statement with members of the debate team, and they are associated with my remarks this morning and that statement dating back to the 1990s, pulling forward to today. And I want to talk a little bit about process. So while we're getting into the nuts and bolts of whose name should go on the Library Learning Center, what I want to focus on a little bit is something called the Open Meetings Act here in Texas and how we've even arrived at this point. Today, I do not believe it is appropriate for the board to vote on them. I think it needs to be tabled. The councilwoman and appointed to 3 statewide boards by a governor. And what an awful lot about is process and the importance of process and people feeling as though all of your constituencies, they've been heard. When the first sighting I get of this is 4 or 5 days ago, and I think back to the committee that brings this forward, the question becomes, did that committee ever hold a public hearing, take in public comment? Are there meeting minutes from that pulled this forward for a full Board of Regents to consider today? That does not exist, and I do not believe that it does, and it did. You would be in violation of the Open Meetings Act of the state of Texas if you were to take a vote on this item today. I don't think that you should do that. I think that we should, because this is a university community, take note of the feelings of different and diverse constituencies. I appreciate hearing from Ms. Provost today, from Wendell King, from Victoria. I think that everyone needs to have the opportunity to state their reason for who they believe this building should be named for. I think that we should have naming an ad hoc advisory committee to study this and to look at placing several buildings around the university. And I am the first distinguished alumnus from the Thomas F. Freeman Honors College, and that's probably one of the greatest privileges of a lifetime, and I've received several awards. It was the Douglas Honors Institute prior. I believe that that's a wonderful start, but I think the finish to that, the bronze statue in front of a learning library in church, for your learning center. And also that the name of Dr. Freeman is affixed to the building. But I don't think we even get that far today. So while everyone is having a meaningful discussion about why it should be named for one person or why it should be named for the other, my thing is you can do the right thing in the wrong season and it's still the wrong thing. And you can also do the wrong thing in the wrong season and it's the wrong thing. Given the fact that there's so much spirited debate and petition that has been circulated with 2,500 signatures at this moment saying one thing, and there is no documentation unless you tell me otherwise and produce it, of how we've even come to be here today. A vote on this today at this Board of Regents meeting, I believe, is in violation of the Texas Open Meetings Act. I just hope you consider that. Let's do the right thing, to the drawing board, and that we take public comment in before we name a building using public dollars, because that's what this is, and that makes this a fiduciary obligation, and we don't want to be in violation of that. I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes. Thank you for your comments and your written statement, which we will have noted.
Thank you.
Next is Kenneth Luna. He's a student here at the university. Mr. Luna, are you on the line? Mr. Luna? If he gets on in the next 2 or 3 minutes, Faith, please put him through. Are there any others, Faith? Are there any others that are here to speak that are not on the list today?
No,
sir. Make sure we get everyone.
No, sir, there's not.
Okay. We're going to, if Mr. Luna does come before we get too far into the business of the day, please let me know. Let's move forward. Again, we got a long day. Let's move forward. Regents, we have a conflict of interest statement. Please complete that. Get that back to the board office upon your completion as soon as you can. And we're going to go into board business now. Can approval of the minutes from the past meetings, that's a special meeting and the board meetings, has everyone had an opportunity to read? Okay, I'd like to move this item. Is there a second?
Regent Terrell seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I'd like to have a couple of comments, and I will comment on this further into our meeting later today. But I want to thank all those that have signed up to speak on behalf of Dr. Rutledge and on behalf of Dr. Freeman. And I appreciate the energy and the input, and quite frankly, the dialogue on this subject. And we will touch upon this later in this meeting, but I just wanted to make sure I thanked everybody for their spirited comments on this subject this morning. As we move forward here, I would like to invite Vice Chairman of this board, Regent Carter, to have some comments. He's been very active on something that I think the body of the university should be very aware of in terms of what he's doing, representing not only this board, but this university and his comments. So I would like to open up the floor to Regent Carter.
Thank you. I just wanted, the Texas Southern family to be, of course, aware, as we are, very, very well aware of where we are in this community, where our university sits, and the community that we represent. And so we as students, faculty, people that live in and near Third Ward, Texas Southern, are significantly affected by the way the city of Houston policed. It wasn't last week. There was a meeting that was called for community leaders by Senator Cornyn. I was a guest and had an opportunity to speak. As a result of that, Mayor Turner asked me if I would participate in his 45-person police reform board or committee. And I want to say that, in the past, there have been, these committees, these task force that look at, police process and policing in this community. And the truth is, there doesn't seem to be much change. But I think now times are different. I think that our community is more aware. And as a representative of this university, I want to make sure that, of course, our voice is heard in how policing is done. And so some of the things that we're going to be looking at are these policies, these use of force policies, zero tolerance policies, how that affects our community, how police are funded and who's being funded. We also have to look at, what's very important to me is community outreach. Like I told the committee that Cornyn had called, I said that the problem right now is, one of the problems is that we're afraid of the police, and the police are afraid of us. And so we have to do something about that, because it just makes the world too dangerous for us. And we see what's happening not only in our community but throughout this country. And so the chairman of this board is Mr. Larry Payne, Lawrence Payne. Maybe some of you are familiar with him. So I have a lot of confidence in him. And one other thing I wanted to say, we're also going to looking at mental health, how that's affected how police deal with mental health, addictions, and also, of course, bonds and jail overcrowding. So that's just want to give you just a brief outline of some of the things that we're looking at, and let you know that this university is involved, and we're very concerned about the way our country's being policed. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Carter. I think on this subject in today's environment, I think any activity, anything that we're doing around trying to revisit the laws around policing, and especially as it relates to our own campus here at the university. We have a sizable police force here at the university. And I think these same discussions we should have with our own force here on the university as the students come back to the campus, because I am confident that their energy level on this subject will be no different than ours. I think this is a subject matter that the school will have to indulge in as we go forward. So thank you, Regent Carter, for your comments. We have one item. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I am, of course, open to any input from our police chief and anyone else that has some, that can assist me or bring forward some ideas that I need to put in front of this committee. So just let me know. I'm open to hearing it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have on the consent docket a item that we just need to get approval on. It's the holiday calendar, vacation holiday calendar. I'd like to move this item now. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes. Thank you. We're going to get into if any have seen the agenda, it's a lengthy day. We're going to change a few things around. We have a lot to discuss, a lot to get into today. A couple of things very quick related to the agenda. we're going to table an item that was actually discussed today somewhat. Is the TSU under academic affairs and student life, Part B. TSU, the president will have comments on that later today, but that's one item that we are going to table today and not be part of the board discussion outside of the comments by the president. Also, due to the length of time today, we're going to move the facilities report, the facilities committee report after the executive session. I'm hoping this time's out somewhere close to the midday time around lunch, where we can come back afterwards and go into the facilities report. So that will be after executive session. Not sure exactly what time that's going to be, but I just want to move that on the agenda. It'll probably be somewhere close to, like, I hope around between 12 and 1 o'clock. But let's move forward now. We're going to hear reports from all committees today: Administration and Finance, Academic Affairs, Development and Legislative, and like I just suggested, Physical Facilities at the end, and obviously the Audit Committee. Let's jump right into the Administrative and Finance. We have Ms. Lockridge and her team to give us input on these various items. So I'd like to invite Ms. Lockridge to the line, please.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. To Chairman Myers and to the other Board of Regents, to President Hewitt. It's a great day here. I'm on campus, a little bit rainy, but I'm here. I'm glad to be so. I'm going to start off with our first agenda item, and it's a contract amendment with Michelle Ramey for consulting services. And Ms. Ramey is a consultant in the area of admissions with the Thurgood Marshall School of Law, and she has been doing some contract work around the admissions office, some analysis and assessment of the admissions office, the staffing process, communications, marketing, and analysis of the financial aid department. This contract is not to exceed $130,000. So we ask and move for approval for the consulting services for Ms. Ramey.
And just a little background on this particular Ms. Raymond. She's a hands-on individual with the dean of the law school, who's been working with the dean and working out some of the issues we've had there in the law school as it relates to the admissions problem. And so I just wanted to give a little background on exactly who the individual is and for what reason we're extending this contract. I'd like to move this item. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on.
Ms. Lockridge?
Yes, thank you. So the next item is a contract renewal with Arthur J. Gallagher for the student health insurance plans. And we have three plans that this covers. The first being the intercollegiate sports accident insurance, the international student health premium, and the international travel insurance premium. And the cost is not to exceed $895,588. This is
Regent.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say we're in the third year of a 3-year agreement on this plan.
Let me elaborate just a little bit on this particular subject, not actually the contract itself. One of the things that was brought to the forefront here as it relates to insurance for our students And I think this is one that we need to take a look at. And Ms. Lockridge, please correct me if I'm not 100% in line with these comments. But we do not, am I correct in saying we do not offer some type of limited health insurance to our student bodies as an opt-in or opt-out? You know, most universities would have a condition to where if you already have insurance as parents, you can opt out. And if you do not, at least you would have a minimum coverage for your student while he's there, she's there on the campus of whatever university that may be. Can you elaborate a little bit in terms of where we are as a university on that subject? Do we have a limited policy that we can? And I think this is very important, and I give you my reasons why that is very important, because I believe in a lot of cases we would have students come to our university that may not have health insurance. And I'm just curious to know, do we have a limited policy where parents can opt in or opt out as it relates to some type of limited insurance for kids when they're here? And then we'll vote on this.
Okay. I'm going to ask Ms. Patron will move forward with responding to that question, Chairman.
Good morning,
Yes,
Chairman Myers, Regents. I am delighted that you have raised this issue. Currently, we do not have what is termed a domestic insurance policy for our students. We once had domestic coverage. It was in the form of a basic accident policy, and it was billed to all students living in campus housing. We opted to end that coverage in the wake of affordable care because it was going to give our students an increase in cost and serious sticker shock, because it was going to go from $104 for a year to $1,200 plus, because at that time they were only offering full benefit coverage. We would be so happy if we could bring back the domestic policy, because, as you mentioned, many of our students come to us with no coverage at all.
I like for other regions, if the president is on the line, to weigh in on this here, because as a parent that have had, I have one left to get out of college, but there is something that will give you that option to opt in. And I believe that for our institution, I'm not for sure what the cost would be. I think we need to look into cost, but I think it's extremely important that we have an option for our students and their families to opt in on something like this if they do not have health insurance. So I'd like to get the other comments from any other regions on this subject, and the president, if he's listening to this, and then we can vote on this particular Gallagher for insurance plan. But I definitely want to talk about this subject now that we're on this subject before we vote on these other things, please. Any comments from any of the other regions?
I guess I would have just one question, and I apologize if I missed any of the information. What is the cost to the student for this, or is this something that the university is assuming the cost?
Chairman Myers, I can actually respond to that because a quote for that was included in our intercollegiate sports plan proposal that you have before you. That cost is $39.50 per student for $5,000 per injury.
Thank you.
You're saying $39 for a parent to opt in and or not on insurance for their son or daughter at the university.
$39.50, and it would afford them $5,000 per injury.
Okay. I'm sure President Hewitt is listening to this. I would have to think that, we would be in somewhat favor of that, but I will let him handle that. But I thank you for your input, and I think this is an important item, so I do not want to see it go by the wayside here. So I'd like to see this one taken up. But as it relates to the contract renewal of the student health insurance plans, Regents, if there's not further discussion, I'd like to move this item. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. So, Ms. Lockridge, please note that, and if we can hear back on this issue at the next board meeting, that would be most appreciated. Please continue. Thank you.
Will do. So then, the next item is to purchase kitchen appliances for University Courtyard, interior Wester Oaks apartment. It will be to purchase 214 refrigerator stoves and dishwashers. The current appliances were originally installed in 2000 and 2002, and they are way past their useful life. The cost would be not to exceed $249,937, and it would include a 1-year warranty. And there was an invitation to bid that was posted on the TSU's website and the state's electronic state business daily site. So the motion is to approve. Endorf was the bidder of the four that responded.
Okay. Regents, any discussion points? I move this item. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Please continue, Ms. Lockridge.
The next item is a request to renew contracts with EBSCO Information Services and ProQuest to provide print journal subscriptions and electronic databases for the Library Learning Center. The cost for this is not to exceed $1,465,933.58.
Is Mr. Barry, is he on the line? I like for him, but because a lot of what this involves with this COVID-19 things that we need to do from getting more updated in terms of what our capabilities are in this environment. Is he on the line?
He should be.
Yes, sir. Good morning. I believe this is not specifically for the library management system, but it is my understanding from the conversation with the provost, this is so that our database specifically that is connected to our overall management system for the library, we're able to renew that with the company called ProQuest. So as our students conduct their research, they are able to gain access to more resources specifically that our library may not have either physically and or via an electronic means. This is capability for our students to continue to do research, and ProQuest is one of the larger database repositories for material.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
This is Provost Harris. Hello, everyone.
Mr. Provost.
Yes, this is our print journal subscription and electronic database for our library systems. This is actually the databases for multiple subscriptions, both in print as well as electronic versions of those. So that's why we have this cost. ProQuest is the electronic database that's off-site. One EPSCO is our information that we actually physically house within or have access within the library. And like Dr. Berry said, the ProQuest is the large firm that allows us to get information off-site, i.e. things that we don't particularly own, newspaper indexes, things that have been archived on microfilm or microfiche, things of that nature. So this is almost to say the heart of information in our library system.
Okay. Any discussion points from any of the regents? Okay. I move this item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Ms. Lockridge?
Yes, thank you. The next item is a request to contract with McConnell and Jones and Weaver and Tidwell for professional financial and assurance services. There is an RFP that was posted, and this work would be to perform a series of financial and operational reviews, process redesigns, and control implementation. And so there were two firms that responded, and we're seeking approval to contract with both firms. And Ms. Charlotte Parker Thompson is on the line, and she could expand on why the selection of the two firms. The cost is not to exceed $565,000.
Ms. Parker, are you on the line?
Yes, Chairman Myers. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. With regard, thank you very much, Ms. Lockridge, Chairman Myers, to the Board of Regents and President Hewitt. We have essentially 8 to 10 projects that have been identified by President Hewitt with input from Ms. Lockridge and myself from an audit perspective that address the top risk areas as well as the implementation of strategic initiatives that we would like to complete within the next 10 to 12 month period. And within those projects, we have from the submitting responders areas of specialization that they presented during the RFP process. And so we are looking to or asking to engage both of the firms, and we have projected areas that we would commission to each of the firms based on their areas of expertise and complexity. These are both professional services firms. They are also audit firms, so they can opine, although the projects that they would be focused on over this next 10 to 12 month period are, again, in the areas of process redesign, implementation, controls implementation, and they are including but not limited to the MAPS implementation. That's our policies and procedures that would also entail controls information, redesign and implementation of our compliance function enterprise-wide, the enterprise risk management initiative, the full implementation there, and a minimum of 2 process evaluation and improvement projects that cover our top risk areas at the university, which may include information technology, facilities, procurement from a contracts perspective, admissions, which we are currently doing quite a bit of activity within, emergency management in light of COVID-19. Athletics is another high risk area, not that it is not adequately controlled, but we're trying to ensure that this slate of projects that the two firms would evaluate cover our top risk areas to the institution as well.
Okay. Let me comment here on a couple of things because I'm glad you did outline some of these areas. And I think for those on the call and listening to this and all stakeholders that this university has, one of the things that we're moving forward with is putting checks and balances into the system. You've heard me say that in order to be credible, you need to be accountable. In order to be accountable, you need to be in compliance. One of the issues that we have throughout our entire operational system is that we do not have enough checks and balances in place. The university has taken a significant gut shot with this admissions scandal scenario, however you want to define it. And it's issues like this here, this university going forward cannot afford to have. And what these two firms are coming in to do is to work with the president on making sure we put teeth into our policies, teeth into our processes, teeth into accountability. We need to do what we say we're going to do. And when we have policies, those policies need to be followed and implemented. So this is extremely important to us going forward, that we put checks and balances into the processes here at this university as we go forward to give this university the credit and the accountability that it deserves as we go forward. So I appreciate it. And if these need to be outlined in bullet points for those that want to see what areas we are looking into, Ms. Lockridge and Ms. Parker, you can do that. But I want to make it clear, not only that for internal staff and administration and students, but external stakeholders in the same breath, that we are going to put compliance back at the forefront of what we're doing here at the university. So if we have any questions on this, let's discuss this now, please. Okay. I'd like to move this item. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Ms. Lockridge?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Parker Thompson.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next item is to contract with IR Media for reputation management services. This contract came about through a request for proposal, which was posted according to the guidelines that we have to post. And so IR Media will provide public relations services regarding reputation management and crisis communications. The contract is to not to exceed $192,000 over a 2-year period. So we ask for approval on this contract.
Okay, Ms. Lockridge, I believe, just for a reference point for those who are listening to the call, I believe our foundation utilizes this service. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes.
That is.
Regents, any discussions on this point?
I just had a clarification type question. I mean, you just mentioned the foundation They also use it, but the contract isn't for their use, right?
No, it's not for their use, but as a reference item, I brought this up in a discussion from a historical perspective. Has this organization done any work with the university to have some background, some historical understanding of the university? And it was brought to my attention that the foundation has been using the services of this organization, and and I just wanted to make that noted.
All right, I appreciate your clarification. Thank you.
Any other discussion points? I move this item. Is there a second?
Second.
Regent Terrell seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Ms. Lockridge?
Thank you. The next item is for an affiliation agreement renewal with the Houston Academy of Medicine, the Texas Medical Center Library, and they provide online access to medical and research databases for our health practitioners, students, faculty. And so this contract is not to exceed $147,971. Provost, do you have
Any discussion points from the Regent? Okay, I move this item. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not for sure if I heard enough there, but any abstentions? Anyone that not? Okay. Motion passed. Okay. Ms. Lockridge?
Okay, I'm going to let Mr. Norris present the next item, banking resolution.
Good morning to the Regents and Mr. Hewitt and Ms. Lockridge. I hope everyone can hear me. I am presenting the change in the banking resolution and signatories for the university's depository accounts. With the changes in positions over the last couple of months, it's necessary to update our signature profile at our main financial institutions. And we're bringing this item in order to approve the addition of Ms. Lockridge as the interim chief financial officer to the signature cards at JP Morgan Chase and Unity National Bank.
Okay, Regents, any discussion points?
I just wanted to make clarification. So they're two different banks, correct? Unity National as well as Chase?
That is correct.
Okay.
Chase is our main operating bank, and we do have some accounts at Unity National as our neighbor about 3 blocks away from campus, and we're just seeking authorization to change the profile on the accounts at both institutions.
Thank you.
Any other discussion points? I move this item. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thought I was missing one. Okay. Any abstentions? Okay. Motion passes. Ms. Lockridge?
The next item is for the student accounts receivable write-off, and it is for the fiscal year 2016. And the amount of write-off is $1,864,635, and it covers 787 accounts. And this is keeping with the policy that we do use 2 collection agencies before bringing the accounts forth to be written off. And at this time, again, the write-off is $1.8 million.
I'd like to spend a minute on this subject. I asked Ms. Lockridge to dig into these numbers a little bit and give me some understanding of exactly the breakdown of exactly, in terms of the student, freshman, sophomore, junior, seniors, law school, graduate school, etc. What is very, very troubling in terms of this write-off, if you look into the numbers, and I bring this up for twofold reasons. One, about 45% of this write-off is related to freshmen. And as you know, as many of you know, and those that are listening, we just had a major admission scenario here at the university where we were admitting students that were not quite situated just yet to be at a rigorous 4-year institution. Admitting students that were not sufficient in math or reading or whatever the scenario may be. Here's where this becomes a problem. When you default on a student loan, you're basically out of the loan business and are trying to get into additional institution because this institution will not release your transcripts or anything associated with your tenure here at this university because you defaulted on your loan. Now, if you were already admitted into this university and you arrived at this university not situated to be able to be successful or the potential to be successful, you most likely end up dropping out and are not paying your loans back. And approximately 43% of everyone that's outlined in this write-off is freshmen. Now, we can't sit up here and say that all of them could have been successful and are not a son. But I can suggest that potentially going back to school is problematic because they have this debt here at this university and they can't get into another university and or get their transcripts released from here because they can't pay their debt. This is a disservice that took place with these students. And this is what we, going forward, cannot accept. This is why the admission process is so important here at this university, that we give students a fair opportunity at being successful. And this is disheartening because we have approximately 300-400 kids in this group that, first of all, can't pay off this debt. Second of all, can't get into another school at 18, 19 years old, that probably could have gone to a junior college, that probably could have gotten themselves situated at a junior college to be able to be situated to go to a rigorous 4-year school. I call that a disservice. And we cannot do things like this going forward. And those are my comments on this here, and I thank you, Ms. Lockridge, for looking into this. And Regents, if you have any additional comments, please let's have that discussion now. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Regent Rowe, thank you so much for elaborating on that. I know that the internal auditor is looking into issues with respect to financial aid and loan packaging and processing, and I would just ask her to also look into this 45% number here, probably from a back end perspective, working backwards to get some sense of any potential overlap between that and the other areas that she's looking into. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, please?
Chairman Myers, this is Regent Medina. My background is in education prior to law school, and I do see that as a significant problem for our community, in that not being able to final your degree, whether it's 4-year trade school, whatever that may be, just pulls us out of a success story that we have in our. So I think that's something we definitely need to highlight today, that we shouldn't be doing that as an institution to any students, much less those in our own community. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further comments, I'd like to move this item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Ms. Lockridge?
Yes, thank you. The next few items, Dr. Berry will address because they're all IT related. So the first one up for approval is a contract with CenturyLink as our internet service provider, and the cost is not to exceed $425,789.40 over a 60-month, 5-year term. Dr. Berry?
Thank you, Mr. Lockridge. Good morning, Chairman Myers, Board of Regents, President Hewitt. As Mrs. Lockridge identified, I will be speaking to you over the next several items from J through Q. And as Chairman Myers initially began, many of the things that we are doing or that I will be presenting to you today are in response to our COVID-19 situation. However, I would also say that due to our planning and the things that I presented to you back in February, we were planning on doing many of these things now, but with this current situation, we were needing to expedite them, and thus that we have. So this item in particular with CenturyLink, if you recall, is for us to create 2 10 gigabit lines, high-speed internet connections, one to our Hannah Hall main data center, and this new one through CenturyLink would be to our new library and learning center. We currently have a 1 gigabit line that is just not sufficient, and as we continue to expand the reliability and availability of the campus network to connect to and from the internet, this helps support that. This also is a part of our overall $18 million plan of investment for the next 2 or 3 years. And again, we've just had to expedite some things moving forward.
And Mr. Berry, I think what will be good here, since all of these are interconnected here, and I hope the other regions are okay with this here. Let's go through these next couple that you have here, and then we will vote on these as an entirety, as a group, because I think they're all interconnected, and I think they're all here tied to some of this COVID-19. So if you can just, that way you don't have to come back and forth. Ms. Lockridge, is it all right if you can just go through these next 2 or 3 items?
Sure.
Yes, sir. Will do.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I need to abstain on this particular item, but I can vote on the others. I'd appreciate if we would take at least this one on its own.
Okay. Thank you, Regent Sorrell. My apologies there. Are there any other? Are there discussion items on this particular item? I I move this item. Is there a second?
Regent Carter, second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? I believe we have one abstention. That's Regent Terrell.
Yes, Regent Terrell abstains. I don't have a conflict of interest under the existing policy, but this company does provide some competing services so for my that my employer does. So out of just an abundance of caution, I'm abstaining for this particular vote. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Regent Terrell. Motion passes. Mr. Barry, if you can, on the next couple of items here that's in your neighborhood, let's go through them. I think they're all interconnected, and that'll save us a little time here. If we can just go through each one, and then we'll have a vote.
Yes,
is that
sir.
okay, Ms. Lockwood?
That is fine. We have two additional ones for approval, and the remaining ones for Dr. Berry are informational items. So
okay.
So the next two for approval, Kate and L. So as I began earlier supporting the provost on the database that is connected, the next item is for the overall library management system. And in this particular instance, we have been able to reduce Texas Southern's costs related to having two library management system platforms and two licenses. So we're able to combine the Thurgood Marshall School library system as well as the overall library system of Texas Southern University, all to the OCLC solution. And this, of course, again, is just overall managing the library overall. The next item is in particularly associated with our digital transformation project named Renew 2022. And Chairman Myers alluded to some of the additional things we need to focus on in our areas of admissions and financial aid. This will help bring additional consultants on board as a part of Renew 2022 to help specifically in those two areas in helping us move some things a lot, I'll say, quicker and more seamlessly through and improving overall processes, as well as improving the information that we provide to the board, to the state, and to the federal government. Those are the last two items for approvals.
And Mr. Berry, I know you stated early on that this is within the framework of the initial outline you gave us several board meetings back of the $18 million that we need to bring our system up to date. Ms. Lockridge, what was the total number on both of these? I just want the board to know what we're spending.
yes, the purchase of the cloud-based library management system is a cost not to exceed $472,791.29, and that's over a 4-year period. And the contract with Volusia for additional managed services in support of Renew 2022 is a cost not to exceed $156,000, and that will be paid over 2 fiscal years, fiscal year 2020 and 2021.
Okay. Thank you. Any comments from the board? I'd like to move on both of these contracts, the cloud-based library management system and the Lucian contract. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Ms. Lockridge?
Yes. So continuing on with Dr. Berry, the next items M through Q are for informational items. Mr. Berry, do you want to begin with the emergency purchase
Yes.
of HP computers?
Sure. So overall, as Chairman Myers and Mrs. Lockridge has identified, with COVID situation happening, we began to make preparations and speed up some of the things we were already planning to do. So item M as well as item N were to purchase laptop computers to further help support the mobility and access for teaching and learning for all faculty as well as critical staff. And so we have made those purchases in regards and in alignment to the Texas Department of Information Resources emergency procurement practices. Item O is for Texas Southern University to continually and rapidly deploy more cloud-based and virtualized servers so that we are able to gain access to resources not relying upon Hannah Hall, our main data center, and we are well aware of the situation we had with our electrical grid over the last several months. And then item P specifically helps with us improving our overall security, because as we become more remote and support more remote access, we have to ensure that who gains access is who they actually say that they are, as well as improving the overall, production of gaining access through password resets, as well as multi-factor authentication. And basically all that is further insurance that someone who's gained access, faculty, staff, or student, to the technology resources at Texas Southern are who they are. You may be familiar with your banking institution where they have to send you a different text message where you have a different code to put in. This again helps strengthen Texas Southern University's security posture. And then the last item, Q, in relationship to further expanding the institution's capability of providing remote resources as well as a standardized platform for electronic signatures and PDF documents similar to our Microsoft Office 365, to where all faculty, staff, and students have this software solution at no cost to them. Those are all of the emergency items that were purchased utilizing Texas Department of Information Resources adjusted emergency procurement due to the COVID-19 situation.
Thank you. And all these were discussion items. But I want to say here what this COVID-19 has done. I think we all know from a health perspective the havoc that it has created not only for the university but for the city and the state. But it is making the university update itself in terms of technology, in terms of having the capabilities to teach online, the capabilities to be remote, the capabilities of, as he suggested, in terms of critical staff. Sometimes in a pandemic like we have right now, sometimes in a dark scenario, the light is we are moving forward from a technology standpoint and becoming more dated as updated as Mr. Barry said, from the monies that we've already spent and need to spend within that $18 million budget that we spoke about, that this is just another element of how the university needs to move forward with technology to bring us up to date. So, are there any points of discussion on this discussion item from the board? Items, I should say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lockridge?
Thank you. The next item is the legal management system. It's going to be a presentation by Precision Task Group. And this is the group that has been working with General Counsel Lee on the legal management system. And Mr. Lee, are you on?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Lockridge. Good morning, Chairman Myers. Good morning, Board of Regents, President Hewitt. Periodically, over the past couple of board meetings, we have brought to the board kind of a status informational item as to the work that we've done with Precision Task Group for this legal management system. You've probably heard it before as a concept of a contract management system, to where the paper contracts or board items that we're working on right now will be in the cloud through this system. So we wanted to provide you with an overview of the ServiceNow system and answer any questions that you may have. So with us today for presentation purposes is Mr. Rick Mims, Ms. Vanessa Ozuna, and Mr. Ben Gonzalez with Precision Task Group. And I think that they have a short PowerPoint presentation that you can see on your screen. And with that, I will turn over to Mr. Mims or Ms. Ozuna.
Good morning, Board of Regents. Thank you for having us today. We are very excited to have had the opportunity to support Texas Southern University in this opportunity. I'm going to turn it over to Rick Mims, and he will walk us through this presentation that will show you what we have worked and accomplished through the legal management contract project.
Okay. Did we lose everybody?
There you are. I am here. I'm sorry, my microphone was turned off. I apologize. Okay. So we're very, very honored to be with you this morning and to get an opportunity to really talk about this project as it was brought to us. The amazing thing is I've only been on with you for a little while, but many of the organizations that we work with right now are actually working hard to, especially during this time with COVID, to work to ensure that many of your systems meet the needs of a remote workforce, bring about levels of accountability, compliance, consistency in the delivery of services. And we took those same thoughts and we wanted to really work to accomplish the same thing, instructed by the university to bring about a best-in-class legal management digital workflow solution. And we've implemented that you'll see momentarily that really resolves several issues typically seen within most of the organizations that we work with. So, for example, here, some of the driving factors for the project, we looked at lack of standardized procedures across the board. And so we certainly addressed that. You needed more accountability in the workflow to meet your compliance standards that you're facing. There were some challenges with confidentiality, integrity, and availability. That's not unusual in today's market. So we wanted to be sure that the information as it's presented within the system, who needs to see the information within legal management, who is required based on a roles standard as far as the amount of information that needs to be seen by each individual, and when is it available. Also, we actually brought about and addressed the need for a cloud-based security architecture to reduce unauthorized access to information as you have it in the system. We wanted to make sure also that in the lack of efficiencies through integration and automation, we wanted to really eliminate and mitigate any manual-based procedures that could be indicative in the office today. And once again, we wanted to make sure that challenges with documentation, we have copious amounts of information that is required in some areas, but once again, we wanted to allow what you wanted in the way of documentation to be addressed, but have the system also prompt and guide each individual set of documentation standards within the system. So what did we do? How did we do it? Well, in working with the TSU team, we looked at 3 areas that would imbue the top 5 priorities of the university, along with meeting state compliance standards, and looking at, for example, SB 819, which talks about the control, security, sharing, and costs of information capture, along with House Bill 3875, that talks about cloud compatibility of certain state agencies in making their technology purchases. Well, we most certainly did those things. So we took a look at accountability, compliance, and the overall workflow processes. So first, to meet the requirement for HB 3875, ServiceNow is the system of choice, and we are a ServiceNow partner. And so my team of developers, my project managers, all went about working with Hal and team on bringing about a cloud-based architecture that is flexible, it is secure, it brings about the confidentiality, it brings about the integrity, integration, and all of those things that brings the university forward as a technology partner. So let's take a look at the first section. In accountability, well, what did we want to do here? We wanted to enable, according to what was given to us, fair distribution of contract awards based on criteria that you set. This wasn't set by PTG. We're just the technology partner, and we designed the system. But in the background, we are talking about the everyday standard operating procedures and making sure that these contracts are awarded based on a criteria that's set by the university. We enable clear documentation of each record with date time stamps that, from an automation perspective, based on your login, if you touch that particular record, from an automated perspective, it actually records from a date, time, and who has touched that record or modified that record within the system. And then along with that, we're able to provide you guys with the right levels of analytics and reporting. Now, so with accountability comes compliance. And so, obviously, once again, SB 819, HB 3875, what we had to do from a compliance perspective was making sure we had the right audit trail. Okay. So we work to define, and the system does it automatically, quite honestly, but we work to define that audit trail. So we enabled that. So from the time a record is created, the time it is completed, you can see all of the steps and all of the touches within the system. And what does that do for us? Well, that mitigates any perceived fraud or nepotism within the process is thus eliminated. And from a management perspective, being able to provide more of a proactive visibility across what we call the entire landscape of each and every contractor agreement that you work with. And thirdly, the process. So from a process perspective, guys, what we are working toward is more of a system-enabled set of processes. That is, we want everyone who works within the legal management perspective to actually work the same way in order to deliver consistency. By delivering consistency, then we are actually shortening the time of delivery or that business outcome. We define data capture standards for each contract to be processed, and that alone will bring about gained efficiencies and overall reduced bureaucracy within the overall business outcome. So we are very proud to have worked with TSU in building this system. The team was really fantastic to work with. We are hoping that we get to do more work of this nature in the future in order to bring the university, forward in meeting its top 5 student priorities, along with the Go Forward Renew 2022 and other initiatives and programs of that nature. And with that is all I have. Hal, I'll hand it back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mims. And, I would open it up for the board for any questions that y'all may have for us that we can answer today. We wanted to give the board this presentation we've been in the testing phase, and we are finished with the testing phase. And before any rollout to university wide, we wanted to provide you with this presentation for any questions, for any kind of either tweaking of the system. And I would just like to quickly add that, we are making our process better. Before we've had the same process, we've tweaked it to make it more efficient, to make it more accountable, but it's still the same look and feel, but the only difference is mainly now in the cloud. Compliance cover sheet, board agenda items. We work collaboratively with all the internal stakeholders, from Office of Institutional Compliance to procurement, to CFO's office. So I thank all of the internal stakeholders for their input and help with us, as well as the PTG team. So we'll open up for any questions that y'all may have.
Couple of thoughts here real quick, because we talked about processes and different things in terms of efficiency and being able to move data as it relates back to the financial group, to the legal group. One of the things that I heard somewhat, but maybe not enough of, is how does this work with compliance? Obviously, that is a pet peeve of mine right now. So how does this improve checks and balances within this particular aspect of the system in terms of overall operations of what we're doing? How does this work on compliance and being accountable in the process?
Yes, sir. And one of the things that has always been important to the board, as the board mentioned before, is transparency. We have worked extensively with the OIT group. And again, many thanks to the OIT group. The compliance component is when you move into the cloud, as Mr. Mims said, every transaction, every record, we will know exactly where it is. As it moves through, let's use an example of a contract. Once a contract moves through these various departments, we will know exactly how long it took in each department. We would know, the documents that were uploaded. We have known who have touched the record. And therefore that gives us not only compliance as in a sense of what we have put forward as to the timetable in which these contracts need to flow through our internal process, as well as all the approvers. The approval process is very important, and the approvers then will independently be able to review the entire process to determine if they're comfortable with approving for their specific, function within the flow, within the workflow. So again, all this information will be on the back end. We can run reports. We can run these kind of predictive analytics. How long does it took us for each contract, as well as board agenda items and all these things. And I think for transparency, which is critical for compliance, everyone can enter the system that will have access. And we use these terms of users, which will put in the ticket, for approvers and fulfillers to kind of do the task in each ticket. And we will kind of be able to look at everybody and how they have provided valuable input within that flow for that ticket.
And I think on that point, just one question. Let's say for an example on a particular contract, the origination of that RFP, how was it originated? The RFP goes out, approved vendors, non-approved vendors. Does it capture A to Z in terms of the beginning, from the standpoint of when the RFP went out, what approved vendors were considered to non-approve, et cetera? I'm just saying, is it tracking the entire process from a transparency perspective?
And I would invite, Mr. Greg Williams may not be on the phone, but so when the system was built, an approver that the ticket cannot move forward will be with the procurement department. So let's use an example for contract. So after certain stages, it will go to the procurement department, which is tasked with making sure that we abide by all the state laws as into procurement, from best value, to where there's any exemptions for procurement. They will have to approve it. And so they would have to do that internal check that they've been doing right now to make sure that the procurement process has been managed, has been initiated, and is completed? Or is there an exemption like an emergency purchase where there's not? Another component within each of these approvers will be to upload documents. So they can upload all those documents that they will need to show that we have, with their approval, here are the supporting documentation in which we have gone through the RFP and we've awarded to this. So the system can capture all the supporting documentation as we move forward.
Okay. All right. Any other comments on this discussion item from the regions? Okay. Thank you, Hal. Thank you. Okay. Go ahead.
I was trying to look and see, is this just informational?
Yes, this is informational, but I want, any comments, any thoughts on this subject matter, because obviously I want to make sure it ties in with compliance. So if you have any comments, thank you. Appreciate it.
And also, Chairman, on that last point, with kind of the various moving pieces that the board has considered today with hiring the two firms for compliance issues, I just want the board to know that with this, we've worked very hand in hand with OIT, with Dr. Berry, as well as with Ms. Charlotte Parker Thompson to make sure that this is just not a one-off. And not only is it integration within our legal management system, it's integration with Renew 2022, as well as all these other compliance pieces that are moving. So just want the board to know that we're not siloed in that effect, and that everyone kind of knows what we're doing, and we will make sure the system is in line with all the other moving pieces that we have.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. And Hal, we may come back to you on this here at a maybe in another discussion point, maybe just to get your thoughts on a couple other things as it relates to the system, and as you suggested, the things that we're doing around compliance in general, and get the president's thoughts on a couple of things. So thank you for the discussion. If there are no other comments on this particular subject here, we'll go back to Ms. Lockridge. Thank you, and thank the gentleman who made the presentation.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
So the next item that we have two items left, and they're both regarding our endowment performance. And for the first item, Mr. Norris will present that, and that's just an update on where we stand performance-wise. And the second item is we have a presentation that will be made by Mr. Sira Dakanek. Hope I didn't mess that name up too bad. And he was last before the board in August 2019 with an update on our performance for our investments. So, Mr. Norris?
Yes, thank you. Thank you again. Hello again. As we were preparing for this meeting, I couldn't help but think of what position we were in 2 months ago. Had the April board meeting, which I think was our first teleconference Board of Regents meeting, and I was the bearer of bad news. The news is a little bit better today, but there are still some angst in terms of the investment markets, and I'm sure Mr. Thekanet, and as part of his presentation, will be able to add some more expert opinion to put the endowment performance in some better context. But a brief review, back in April, we had March month-end numbers at that point, and the endowment market value was down to basically $52.5 million, which represented a steep decline, which was not unexpected based on the performance in the market at that point. You will recall that in mid-February, most of the major indexes were at all-time highs. And within the span of about 6 weeks, actually within the span of about 4 weeks, there was more than a 20% decrease in investment values in those indexes at that time, and we did throughout the latter part of March begin an uptick, but we were still down. The portfolio, the equity portion of the portfolio, which at that time was basically 3/4 of the endowment account, was down over 20%, which of course led our values to recognize some steep losses. In April and then again in May, we were able to benefit from some rebounds in the investment markets, which took place during that time period. And at the end of May, the market value of the endowment was slightly over $60 million. Although it is still down for the year by about a little over 5%, it is comparing favorably for the year-to-date over year-to-date 2019, with the performance up 9.6%. So a lot has changed in the last basically 4 months, 3 months during which we have detailed information. But any article or any news story can tell you every day that the one truth of investments that you learn in business school is the only thing that you know about the markets definitely is that they will fluctuate, and they have fluctuated. They're up on good news, they're down on good news, and then they're down on bad news, and they're up on bad news day to day. So again, it highlights the importance of having day-to-day professional management of the endowment in order for over the long term for us to realize positive returns as we have. One other thing that I want to cover briefly and is just to give you an idea in terms of the endowment of some of the larger holdings that we have, companies that you will recognize, but just to fill in some blanks in terms of how we're invested and what is driving some of our performance at this point. Stocks such as Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google, Apple, CVS Health Corp, Walt Disney Company, one foreign stock, Medtronic, Microsoft, PayPal, Raytheon, Union Pacific. All large cap names that most of us, I'm sure, would recognize. Maybe not Raytheon, but it's a defense contractor and is now the survivor of a merger with United Technologies, which is a Dow component. So those are the types of names that are driving our performance right now. And just to give you an idea of how we're invested and what some of the potential is going forward. If there aren't any specific questions about the endowment performance, if there are any questions, I'll certainly take them at this point. If not, I'll go ahead and introduce Cyril Thekanet, who is the President and Chief Investment Officer of Consequent Capital Management, which serves as our investment advisor. He has delivered a presentation to the Board of Regents last year and is with us again this year at what we think is a very critical time with the recent performance of the markets, as well as the pandemic, as well as the other issue which usually impacts market performance at this time is an upcoming presidential election. So there are a number of factors to consider at this point, and at this time I would ask Mr. Thekanet to begin his presentation and give us some of a more global view in terms of the market.
Thank you, Mr. Norris. This is Cyril Thekanet, and good morning, Chairman Myers, Regents, and President Hewitt. For the benefit, I guess, of perhaps a couple of new members, I what I'd like to do is to give you a quick overview of our firm, Consequent Capital Management, as well as the investment advisory consulting services that we have been making on behalf of Texas Southern University. I'll then give you a summary update of the endowment fund, some of the points that Alfred covered, and I'll go into a little bit more detail about the backdrop, as Alfred pointed out, this pandemic environment, the upcoming presidential election, the nature of markets, and so on. I believe you all have this sort of 7-page deck in front of you. So if you just turn to page 2, just very quickly, Consequent Capital Management. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. So Consequent Capital Management is an independent registered investment advisory firm, which is minority owned with over $1 billion in advisory assets. We essentially develop investment solutions that are customized for the needs and objectives of each of our clients. And one of our specializations is in the identification and selection of both emerging as well as diverse investment managers. So our clients include endowments and foundations, such as the Texas Southern University Endowment Fund, as well as pension plans. So the following page, page 3, it gives you an overview of our investment consulting services. So in our investment consulting engagement, what we do is we work closely with both staff as well as investment committees to help identify goals and objectives that are used to formulate a customized investment policy. And this investment policy is designed to meet your specific objectives. We then utilize our capital markets outlook as well as our investment research to develop an asset allocation analysis within a risk control framework. So all that this is doing is helping to determine what's the best mix, given the endowment's objectives, what is the best mix in terms of asset classes. So this results in an optimal investment portfolio, which is then recommended to the investment committee and then implemented. The portfolio is then monitored carefully on an ongoing basis, and reports are produced for both staff as well as the investment committee on a monthly as well as on a quarterly basis. So that's just a quick snapshot of the work that has been done for TSU's endowment. So on page 4, some of the numbers Mr. Norris has already told you about, but to just give you a summary snapshot of the endowment fund as of the end of May, it was just over $60 million. And the investment return year to date for the first 5 months of 2020 was negative 5.1%. For the 1 year, the rolling 1 year ending May 31, it was 9.6%. And over the long term, between 5 and 10 years, your return has been between 7 and just under 10%. The other important metric is also in terms of understanding how the TSU endowment ranks versus other endowment and foundations across the country. And there is a NACUBO universe, a NACUBO survey, which I think you're all familiar with. Those returns are as of the end of June of each year. So at the end of this month, the results will be made available, but only in January of next year. So there are other universes. We use one that is widely available and used by a number of other firms. It's called Investment Metrics. So when we look at the Investment Metrics universe, despite the significant downturn in the markets in the first quarter, the TSU endowment over the past 5 and 10 years, it still ranks in the top 7% to top 3% of the entire universe of these other endowments and foundations. And the lower box on page 4 provides you with the investment policy and objectives for the Texas Southern University Endowment. The primary objective, of course, is safety of principal and the preservation of capital. The next objective is that the real rate of return, that means after inflation, that this will equal or exceed 4.5% to 5% over the long term. And when you look at your returns in the top box of 7 to almost 10% over the past 5 and 10 years, you can see that you are very comfortably ahead of the objective of 4.5% to 5% on a real rate of return basis. And the last objective is to be at least in the second quartile ranking of the NACUBO universe. And not only are you in the top quartile, but for periods of time, you're actually better than being in the top 10% of that entire universe. Page 5 just gives you the picture of the performance, the relative returns of the TSU endowment versus the endowment and foundation universe. And the very last row that you see there, TSU endowment, the first number is the return, and then what's in parentheses is the percentile ranking. So for example, as of the end of the first quarter, that negative 5.9% return puts the endowment in the top half. It's in the top 42% of that universe. Over the past 3 years, ending March 31, it is in the top quartile, and then 5, 7, and 10 years, the endowment ranks better than the top 10%. So on a relative basis to a lot of the other endowments and foundations, despite the downturns, the volatility in the markets, the TSU endowment has actually held up very well. The more updated returns that are shown on page 6 are as of the end of May, and you can see there year-to-date negative 5.1%. Just to put this into context, as Alfred had mentioned, the first quarter, the endowment was down 17%, 17.3%. But in the second quarter to date, for the months of April and May together, there was a very significant rebound in performance. It was up 14.7%, so just a touch under 15%. So with the May numbers, you can see that your 1-year, 3-year, 5-year, 7-year, and 10-year returns are holding up extremely well. Also, just to put into the right picture the returns for the endowment, for the calendar year 2019, last year, the TSU endowment had a return of 24.4%. It was in the top 3% of over 900 endowment and foundations. So there will be periods of time, clearly, when markets do go down. But I think to the extent that the structure of the portfolio is done in a manner with a view towards what the long-term picture or outlook is going to be, it is going to be beneficial. It will help the endowment also weather these ups and downs. Now, clearly, the environment that we are in now, especially after February of this year, this whole pandemic is very, very different. There is no question about it. And I think, we send out write-ups every month, which we send over to the investment committee and to staff as well. And one of the things we point out is, yes, there has been a very unfortunate fallout from the pandemic in terms of job losses, in terms of literally a shutdown of the economy. But the key thing to keep in mind is this was government mandated. In other words, the government, not just in the U.S., but around the world, has literally shut down economies. So the fact that we've had, March, April, May, 3 months when there was virtually no economic activity, it was because there was no other recourse to trying to control the spread of the virus. So the reason I say this is when we look back more than 50 years, going back to 1960, there have been 8 other recessions. Every single one was the result of a financial or an economic problem. This is the first time, quite honestly, that this has not happened, right? This has been because of a health issue. It's a health crisis. It was not an economic crisis. It was not a financial crisis. We had one of the strongest economies right through January and part of February of this year. As you all know, we had an unemployment rate which was at 50-year lows. So the answer is really twofold. One is clearly there needs to be a cure in the form of a vaccine and in the form of therapeutics. And on that front, without a doubt, there has been tremendous progress, as you all know. I mean, the entire world from a research standpoint is focused on finding a cure. And we are well on the road to finding drugs and to finding vaccines. There are over 100 vaccines in the pipeline. There are 3 vaccines that next month will be in phase 3 human trials, which is unheard of. So I think even the medical people are somewhat optimistic that there is likely to be a vaccine by the end of this year, or at least by the beginning of next year. And in the meantime, there are therapeutics that are going to mitigate the very negative impacts to some people who unfortunately come down with this virus. So there is a lot of progress that is happening on that front. Simultaneously, there has been an enormous response from both governments as well as central banks in terms of stimulus. As you all know, it's in the order of trillions of dollars in the U.S., Europe, Japan, etc. And so all that stimulus, all those payments, all those dollars that are going into the system are hopefully going to help us bridge the gap between today and when we have a lasting solution to this medical issue. So if we kind of look out where we are likely to be a year from today, it is highly likely that we will be in a far better place. And that's the reason why the markets have been behaving in this type of a manner where equity markets were down almost 20% in the first quarter. They are up about 19% so far in the second quarter, because I think, investors are trying to look beyond all the issues, all the negative economic data that we are currently seeing. And to that extent, what we have been advising all our clients for the past 3 months is to really stay the course. This is not the time to talk about massive de-risking of portfolios raising large amounts of cash and so on. And as we can see, staying the course has certainly proven to be very beneficial. Now, as Alfred mentioned, we do have another sort of unknown, this whole presidential election. There is going to be, without a doubt, noise that's going to surround that whole period as we move towards the end of the year, November in particular. But I think from the standpoint of looking at the underpinnings of the economy, not just in the U.S., but globally, once we get over the effects of the pandemic, the economy should turn up and should be okay. We are clearly seeing signs of that even in the month of June. And so the likelihood is that there is going to be a sharper move up in the third quarter and beyond. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any comments? Let me thank you for your presentation, Alfred, and everyone there. I think in short we can say that we still got a choppy market in front of us. But, mitigating that is from a portfolio perspective is part of the process here. So we thank you for your insight, and if we do not have any additional questions, any questions from the board?
Not at this time.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation and comments. We're looking at the time. We're going to continue to move forward with academic affairs, research, and student life committee. I'd like to bring forth now Regent Medina, and you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to have two presentations this morning from committee. One involving updates to the Freedom of Expression Policy and Procedure. That is our First Amendment right to peaceably assemble, but where TSU has reasonable regulations. And then second, we are the on admission superior development. So, Provost Harris.
Good morning once again, Regents, President Hewitt, and all the assembled. I come to you saying thank you for allowing this committee to speak. We did table one item on tenure and promotion that we'll bring later, but the first item on the docket is on the order of freedom of speech. This is an item that Dr. McKinney, our Vice President of Student Affairs, led. Dr. McKinney, are you online?
I'm here. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Good morning, Chairman Myers, esteemed members of the board, President Hewitt, and the TSU family. TSU has long held a freedom of expression policy. We seek approval from the board today to update this policy to ensure that universities continued compliance with Texas Education Code Section 51.9315. So 3 areas that I want to highlight related to the revision. So number 1, our recognition that the common outdoor areas of the campus are deemed traditional public forums, so long as the conduct is not unlawful and does not materially and substantially disrupt the functioning of the institution. Secondly, that we have free, robust, and uninhibited debate or expressive activity by both the students and the public. And then the third piece is that we implement we can still implement reasonable restrictions on time, place, and manner of these expressive activities in these common areas. So in other words, for this last piece, if it creates a safety hazard, if it interrupts movement of traffic, if it's disruptive activity, if it's focused on defamation, if it's riotous conduct or obscene as defined by law, then we can still put some reasonable restrictions on this expressive activity. Also, when it comes to amplified sound, we propose to not allow any amplified sound in the days leading up to final exam weeks and during final exams. Lastly, we have to implement and demonstrate no later than December 2020. We have to demonstrate our implementation of this policy and the revisions in according with the statute. So that is basically the highlight of those revisions that we're bringing forth today. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Yes, so this is Student Regent Johnson. Who has the legal jurisdiction to determine like the safety hazards? Because I understand, would it be resolved with the with Chief Young, or would it be up to the president of the university, or who would determine those?
Right, and so I guess, do you all have the copy of the proposal in front of you in terms of the actual proposed policy? And if not, I will go straight to that area for you. I was going to highlight it for you.
Dr. McKinney, we do have it, but with everything being online and telephone, it may be taking a couple of minutes for everybody to pull it up.
Absolutely. And so, I apologize. Someone else was speaking?
Oh, I'm sorry. Continue.
Okay. All right. So with regard to this policy, individuals can engage in expressive activity, of course. They may be required to relocate to other areas by the Vice President of Student Services or their designee or the Department of Public Safety. Does that answer your question, Regent Johnson?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I guess, do you mind relaying the actual Texas Education Code that mandates that we, include this policy, rather?
Yes, ma'am. It's Texas Education Code 51.9315. It's called the Protection of Expression on Campus. And I can read various elements of that code if you all would like me to do so as well.
No, I just wanted to make sure everybody has access to it and they can just pull it up quickly and read it. I mean, not now, but just at some point.
And just so that everyone has an understanding of how that statute is defining expressive activities, it says any speech or expressive conduct protected by the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. It can include assemblies, protests, speeches, the distribution of written material, the carrying of signs, and the circulation of petitions. It does not include commercial speech. And so that is how it's defined by statute. Any other questions?
No, ma'am.
Any other comments from the board?
I have none. Chairman, I'd like to move this item. Is there a second?
Regent Carter, I second.
Second.
Mm-hmm. All in favor?
Mm-hmm.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McKinney. And then our next area is the admissions criteria. Dr. McKinney, will you be presenting on this as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Dr. McKinney and I have worked on further fleshing out the admissions criteria that the board will approve according to the Board of Regents bylaws, as well the any and all COVID-related matters. We're trying to put those out there on the website, and just general admissions on the website. And Dr. McKinney, I give you the floor.
Thank you so much, Regent Medina. There have been some board-approved avenues to becoming a student at Texas Southern University, and those have included those students who graduated in the top 10% of their high school class. And we are allowed to do this by Texas Education Code 51.803. The other avenue to becoming a Texas Southern University student is our guaranteed admissions process of having a 2.5 GPA, a 900 SAT, or a 17 ACT score. What was recently added was an additional pathway to becoming a student at TSU, and that's for those students graduating in the top 25% of their class. They need to have a 3.0 GPA or higher, and if they meet this criteria, we're waiving their need to submit to us an SAT or ACT score. This is a temporary measure that the board approved because of COVID-19, and so many of those standardized tests were canceled, and we didn't want to create a barrier to students being able to still come to TSU because of COVID-19. And so I do want to also add that for top 10%, they also don't have to submit scores, but that is provided for in the Texas Education Code, that those scores are not required, that they just have to graduate in the top 10%. And so for this other category of high achieving student, the top 25% that was just approved by the board in our last discussion, we're also waiving those test requirements. So what we're asking today is for the board to consider the implementation of an admissions appeal committee at Texas Southern University. And so if a student did not meet one of those three pathways to becoming a TSU student, so the top 10% are standard admissions of 2.5 GPA, 900 SAT, or 17 ACT, and or the recently added top 25% category. If students didn't meet those three criteria and they were denied admission to TSU, we are asking that the board consider the implementation of a admissions appeal committee who would consider an individual review or committee review of these applicants. And so what we're asking for is that via this committee, the student or prospective student would submit an essay, and that essay question would be for them to describe any new information that they want us to consider for the appeals committee. This new information will be related to the applicant's academic performance, any extracurricular activities that they're involved in. It can also include a description of any extenuating circumstances. So any new information which was not provided at the original point of application. They would also include any high school or college transcripts for evaluation, one letter of recommendation, which can be from a teacher, a school official, a community member who can speak to the nature of the appeal, and it should include any compelling background about that student. If they have proof of college readiness in reading, writing, and math, they can submit that to the appeals committee for consideration, and any other documentation which would substantiate the appeal. And lastly, any COVID-19 related testing restrictions. And again, that would be a temporary measure for the committee to consider. But we're asking that this appeals committee be able to operate utilizing those 6 criteria that a student would have to submit to them. This appeals committee would be made up of a group of admissions staff as well as academic affairs staff. This staff will review the admission decision to determine if the new information submitted by this prospective student warrants a different admissions decision. For each appeal, the committee would make one of the following recommendations: admission to the university, admission to the Summer of Success or SOS program, or the student would remain denied, and they would not be admitted to the university. We're also asking that for this appeals committee, that only a percentage of students would be admitted via this appeals process. And so 15% of students could be admitted through this appeals process. And so the last piece that I'll add related to the committee is it's a two-step review. And so you have that committee review, and then the last and final step would be the review conducted by the Senior Associate Vice President of Enrollment Management. And so we wanted to make sure there was 2 steps of review, and then they would make the recommendation for one of those 3 decisions. So admission to the university, admission to the SOS program, or they would remain denied, and they would not be an accepted student. Are there any questions related to this request to create an appeals committee for Texas Southern University?
Ms. McKinney, my only question would be, when we outline this in print, we outline this on our mission policy, our system, is that it's simplified to the point that parents and students can follow it, and it's not a difficult navigation type process that they have to go through. I just like to see it simplified if we can when we actually put it in policy.
And I agree with you 100%, sir. And so we are in the process of revamping our admission webpage, our outreach web pages. And so we're trying to, and I believe as of yesterday or earlier this week, we have updated a lot of our outreach content. Because with COVID-19, our campus hasn't been as readily accessible, so we put a lot more content there so that students are understanding, and their parents and our ISD partners are understanding all the different ways that they can engage with us over the summer, so that they can go from being an informed prospective student to an admitted student and working through those respective checklists. And then the same thing is happening with the admissions webpage, so that we're transparent, it's clear, and everyone understands the criteria for admission, and then, of course, the criteria for an appeal.
Yeah, and I also just wanted to add that there is a limit on the appeals. It's just 15% of the total student population admitted. So we do have a cap on who would come through an appeals process, and that would be inclusive of both the SOS as well as any that are just admitted without SOS. That would be the cap. I did want to go back and revisit the 3.0 on the top 25. I just want to also remind everybody 3.0 is temporary measure at time due to the fact that we do have some COVID-related limitations on testing. But it is temporary. It's something we will revisit. My first take on it was WIPE have a GPA, they're about 5%. But again, that's a temporary, we can go back and revisit. We did vote on it, so we're, again, if we have a student who's in the top 25 and is below 3.0, given the board's approval criteria in top 25 student population, that student, let's say, is in the top 25 but has a 2.8, that still is afforded the appeals process. He's not, or she's not, completely denied. So just, there are avenues to still be admitted, even if you don't fit into the top 3, 1, 2, and 3 criteria. But again, to reiterate, top 25, I know, and getting rid of the testing is COVID, and it is.
Yeah, I have a question. Regent Carter, I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, Regent Carter.
Thank you. that third bullet, the 25% high school class, but under 3.0, those students are limited to 15% as well, correct?
If they fall into an appeals,
Yes.
if they are
Okay.
under denied,
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
My other question is this, and it's just information. Isn't it true that most of our students have taken the SAT or ACT?
Dr. McKinney, that's true, correct?
Correct.
And so this number of persons that have, or students, potential students that have not taken an ACT or SAT is actually a relatively small number. Would that be a true statement?
It's smaller in comparison to the overall students who've applied for admission. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. And this is for Regent Medina. Were you saying that the student that meets the 25% but does not have the 3.0 will have to go to the appeal process?
Right. The board voted at the emergency meeting to add the 3.0 GPA.
And that's
the
for
25%. Yes. But
Again,
that's
for students who don't meet the test requirements.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm thinking for the 10%, they don't have to meet that GPA requirement. So why is it that we are imposing the 3.0 on the 25%?
Right. And that was kind of what I felt in the beginning. It was just, it's redundant to have the top 25% and then tack on the 3.0. But
yeah,
it's a little different than top 10. And it's also due to the fact that if they don't have that SAT score, or ACT score, that,
this is Regent Carter. I'd like to comment.
Yes.
That the top 10% is a statutory
mandated
admissions. So what we did with the 25% is not necessarily statutory. That's something that we could do because of COVID.
Right.
Okay.
That is prior. Top 25% statute does not discuss that 3.0 or the COVID.
Yeah.
That's in the board implemented at the emergency meeting. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
And again, that's a temporary measure, both the 3.0 as well as the COVID testing restriction and limitation matters. Those are both temporary measures, just because of the time, just because of the pandemic. So those can be and will be looked at again, by this committee.
This is Reason Johnson. I have a question.
Yes.
Is the appeal process also included in the application fee? There's no extra fee associated with the
Great question. There will be no additional fee.
Okay. And then as well as, to my understanding, other universities such as University of Texas at Austin and Ohio State University, they're not requiring students SAT or ACT scores for the I think it's the fall of 2021. Yeah, the fall of 2021. So are we currently crafting policies to adhere to what other universities are? A part of that as well, those discussions.
And so that has been definitely a point of discussion, and something that's been brought up for consideration. As you mentioned, both in-state schools and out-of-state schools, many have waived standardized test requirements because of the pandemic. And so that's definitely something that we can bring back to the board for consideration. Yes, sir, we can definitely do that.
Right. Test. It's been in our committee discussion, all future possible, pandemic related consequences. So it's an ongoing conversation, and we will, like I stated earlier, continue this as well as if and when special called board meetings are needed, such as the one where we brought in the, other COVID-related admission criteria at a special called meeting, we will do that again when and if that's necessary.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I also just wanted to add for further clarification regarding the appeals, the two-step. That two-step process has nothing to do with the student. It's an internal two-step process. There's student could, and then also do another, administrator campus. That's not what we're proposing. We're just stating that it's two steps internally. So the student does that appeal and waits for a decision on the TSU portal. Just wanted to clarify that. And there is a graphic, and I'm not sure if the graphic was shared, but Dr. McKinney has done an amazing job putting together as what I feel is a very, very clear graphic, Chairman, that I believe would help any, parent to apply to TSU and eventually get admittance. So, there are no further questions. I'd like to move for a vote.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion's passed. Oh, sorry. I got a little ahead of myself. I didn't hear everybody's aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion's passed.
Thank you.
And I also once again, and as well as the IT department, because they're really working really diligently to make sure that not only these documents in the place on the website, but also they're working diligently to ensure the application time where it's minimally, interaction until it gets to the appeals process. So thank you.
And Regent Medina, may I make one quick
comment? Yes.
Thank you so much for your compliments, and I just want to make sure to include marketing and communications in that because they work to update the graphic and the web pages and so much more. So I really appreciate their assistance with this as well.
I apologize. I forgot about. Right. Yes, I agree. Been a giant group effort. It's an ongoing effort. Thank you. That is the conclusion of my report. Thank you.
That concludes the academic affairs. Is there anything else, Regent Medina, before we move forward?
No, I am good. Thank you.
Okay. We're going to go right into the Development and Legislative Affairs Committee. If Ms. Melinda Spalding is on the line, I'd like to hear from her as we talk about a couple of things in this category. Thanks. Ms. Spalding?
Good morning, Chairman Myers and fellow regents and members of the Board of Regents, and President Hewitt. The first item that is up for approval this morning is related to a gift to the university of real estate by one of our outstanding alumni, Dr. Carolyn Yarbrough. Just so you all know a little bit about Ms. Yarbrough, she is a two-time graduate of Texas Southern University. She also taught as a professor at TSU. She currently has an endowment in her family's name. She is active with the university. She supports our fundraising events. She attends events on and off campus, and she received her doctoral degree from the University of Houston. She is donating some family property in Lake Livingston Village in Livingston, Texas. These are two undeveloped residential lots square footage, about 3,500 per lot. The tax assessed value is $1,408 per lot, but the market comps are ranging between $4,500 to $8,500 per lot. That's as of October 2019. And the donation is an immediate gift to the university, for which we are very grateful. And because this is a real estate item, it does require board approval.
Okay. Any questions around that? We're always appreciative of a gift. So, other than saying thank you, but do we have any comment? Well, thank you, Ms. Spalding. I'd like to move this item. Is there a second?
Regent Carter, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Ms. Spalding, would you like to talk a little bit about the Jana Floyd scholarship? I can add to that.
Absolutely. I can kick it off, Chairman Myers. I know this was very dear to you as we worked to put this together. So we'd like to thank the Board of Regents along with the TSU Foundation Board for working together to approve a fund to provide a full scholarship for Gianna Floyd, the youngest daughter of George Floyd, the late George Floyd. We all, as part of the TSU community, I know Chairman Myers, you will elaborate, wanted to do something meaningful that would have a legacy for the memory of Mr. Floyd. If Miss Floyd chooses to attend the university when she is of age, there will be a place for her, and that scholarship will be available to her.
Thank you. I think we all know the story here. And I think as a parent, I think we all can have some thoughts in this regard. And as a dad, I imagine, there's a thought here. And the thought that crossed my mind at the time when this came about was, if something happened to me today in this fashion or any type of accident or something similar to this, what happens to, if I had younger sons, what happens? I'm blessed that I do have certain things, but what really happens in this particular case, I thought that, being from Houston, he was from Houston, lived right around the corner from the university. This is something that, as a university, not only we should do, but we can do. I am most appreciative to members of the foundation, very particularly Mr. Gerald Smith, who I did speak with on this subject, that quite frankly, personally offered up to help do this through him and his wife, Anita's education fund, if the foundation was not able to do it. So I think everyone was on the same boat in terms of trying to figure out a way how to help this young lady. And we'll never be able to replace anything that a dad could do. But I thought this was something that we could do as a university. So I thank all those that was in support of this to get this done. And I'm personally glad that we were able to do this. So thank you, Melinda, for working with me and others on this. And I'm hoping that it was well received by the family. As we move forward.
This is Regent Carter. I'd like to also thank the foundation and Melinda for their thoughtfulness and compassion. It's a very, very compassionate gesture. We thank you very much.
It's our pleasure. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you, Melinda, and we'll hear from you once again, I believe, later on today on another subject. I do not believe we have any items, but I'd like to hear from Regent Carter on personnel and litigation.
I have no report.
Okay. Let's move on to athletics. There are not any things to vote on here, but I did ask Dr. Granger if he could have a word on some very good news out of the athletic department on some processes that I think would be good for not only the board to hear, but other stakeholders on this call to hear. Is Dr. Granger on the call?
Yes, sir, Chairman Myers. I am present.
Okay. You have the floor.
Okay. Good morning to Chairman Myers again, Board of Regent members, President Hewitt. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity to address the board and the TSU family. First of all, I want to start off by congratulating the Hill family. As you all know, I shared the information. We had it on our website. We are blessed enough to have another Tiger get inducted to the NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame. The late, great Mr. Winston Hill will go in this year, 2020. So we're excited about that. We put another Tiger into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He joins our own Michael Strahan. So now we have two to celebrate and embrace. So we're super excited about that, and we want to make sure we shared that with everyone and congratulate the Hill family and also the excellent job he was able to do while he was here as a part of our football team. Also wanted to share some exciting news with everyone. Some highlights for our academic success of our student athletes. For the 2020 term, our overall department GPA is a 3.19. Let me say that again. Our overall GPA of our entire athletic department is a 3.19. And I wanted to make sure I said that twice because these student athletes working with everyone on the campus, starting with the board, the president office, provost office, our faculty and staff, compliance, academics department, are guiding and working with our student athletes, and they're achieving some unbelievable goals. For them to be able to carry a 3.19 as a department with all of the travel, the rigorous practice, and making sure they stay on top of their academics, we're really, really excited about where we are at as a department. Our highest GPA for our women's sports went to our women's soccer. Their team had an overall 3.57. Our highest men's sport was baseball, and they had a 3.571. We had 43 academics champions who had a 4.0. We had 101 athletic directors list, and that's a 3.5 to a 3.9. We had 101 of them, and we had those people, student athletes that fell in that category, and we had 82 Tiger honor rolls. They were a 3.0 to a 3.49. On yesterday, the commissioners of the SWAC released his commissioners all academic team, and we had 156 of our student athletes that were named to the SWAC commissioner team on yesterday. So some exciting news about what our student athletes are doing. We also had an APR, our NC2A APR report came out. For the 10th consecutive years, we don't have any penalties. Our women's golf team was recognized by the NC2A for posting a consecutive season of 1,000 score. 1,000 is a perfect score. It's the highest score you can get in APR. And if you have multiple seasons of 1,000, the NC2A then recognizes you. Our softball team tied its highest multi-year rate in program history with a 978. Our women's soccer posted its highest single-year and multi-year APR in program history had a 981 and a 972, and our women's basketball posted a 974, which is their highest. We had 12 teams out of our 16 had a 950 or higher. So the goal is to at least be above a 930. That's the NC2A mandate. It means you're eligible to continue to play as long as you stay above a 930. And we're thankfully all of our programs are performing above that threshold, so we don't have any reason for concern or APR penalty. The last thing I want to share, and the board, Ms. Faith, were able to share it with you all earlier. We just completed an audit report. The NC2A, every 4 or 5 years, pick schools where they come in and do an audit report on your information. They're going to pull your financial aid agreements. They're going to pull your banner system to see if the student athletes are coded right. They're going to see how they are progressing towards their degree completion. They're going to see if we're awarding them right, putting the financial aid correctly. It's a multitude of things. Now, this report is really, really important because it could have some severe and detrimental penalties. They could obviously start with minimum, reducing your scholarships, reducing your practice time, and it could get even severe, no postseason play, no game guarantees. You have to take letters and things of that around to recruits and things of that nature. I shared this report with the board, and President Hewitt has a copy of it as well. Thankfully, we have no action required. And if anybody know anything about these data reports and these audit reports, every time you can have a no action required, that means you're doing everything right. So we were super excited about that. NC2A even gave our compliance team a kudos. They said it was one of the easiest report they've ever done. We got through it. They pulled about 104 of our student athletes to review it, and we want to thank everyone that's involved, even the registrars, for keeping our transcripts and things of that nature. It's just a multitude of people that go in, that involved with making sure athletics is running correctly. And we want to make sure we let everybody know that we are running athletics correctly, and we have the data and the reports to prove that. So we were thankful to get to this particular item with no issues, and hopefully for the next 4 or 5 years, we don't see them again and have to do this report again. Those are just some of the updates. I think Dr. Anna James, Chairman, I think she was supposed to be on the call. She's our oversight committee. Dr. Anna James is a professor in the law school. She runs the oversight committee, non-biased, have nothing to do with athletics, but it's a part of our oversight committee. Dr. Anna James, are you on the call?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Dr. Anna James, I would yield the floor to you to make some comments on your observation as being the oversight chairperson of the athletic committee.
Thank you so much. To Regent Myers, Board of Regents members, President Hewitt, administrative and staff, I am Anna Taylor James, the faculty athletics representative. I'm also a faculty member at Thurgood Marshall School of Law. And you just heard from the athletics department for we're very proud of that. And one of the things that on when Mr. Granger was giving us the results of the students and their performance, please keep in mind that he's talking about a student population of 352 student athletes who have performed at such stellar levels in terms of their academic success, specifically looking spring semester. And we know the difficulty that all of us went through during the spring semester based upon COVID-19. So while he mentioned, and I want to reiterate this again, we had 43 student athletes with a 4.0 average. And those majors, some of them included education, business, biology, and the health sciences. So it shows that we are producing very productive students who will be well-rounded, good citizens, and provide leadership. I'd like to share with you just a few of the concerns that I'd like to see in terms of enhancement as a result of all of the great work that we've done to regain our status from approximately 10 years ago in terms of where we were in the athletics. But we regained our status, and we want to maintain that. To enhance our academic needs athletics department. Specifically, my concern is that we need an academic success facility and equipment. Now, you say we have a center in the athletic department. Yes, we do, but it is not large enough to accommodate all of the needs, the growing needs of students. We are continuing to grow and enhance our facilities. We need more workspace, a life skills workshop, learning tools and equipment, large meeting rooms, group meetings for large rooms, a central location to provide academic and life skill resources for our student athletes. Now, as we enhance the facilities, we also need to enhance the staff. We need additional student academic advisors. If we are going to continue the level of performance and support that we are offering students who are first students and also athletes, then we've got to provide support for them. Likewise, we need to generate funds to create a comprehensive enhancement curriculum for our students. That would include career development, community involvement, transition after college, freshman transition, diversity and inclusion, personal advancement. In addition to that, have some adding in a learning specialist, and then more specifically in more modern times that we are acknowledging, we would need certainly a mental health counselor for the department. Now, that's just a few considerations from the academic side, because again, that is the foremost piece, with the students being students first and then athletes second. Now, to enhance our success academically, we likewise would also need to include some facilities updates. When the coaches are out going to recruit, to bring students to our university, we want to be able to have funding for them to adequately recruit. We are now enhancing our university brand. We have been for a number of years selling tips for our games and to increase those sales to our events. Well, we've got to help develop the product. And coaches now, in order to be competitive, not only within the SWAC region, but nationally, we want to get some good recruits can put a good product on the field. So we would recommend some enhancement in terms of the budget for recruiting. Second part of that, if we're going to recruit, we've got to have facilities so that we can show the prospective students and our students who are already on campus that we are serious about the kind of facilities that we have in order to enhance them and put an excellent product out for the athletics department. We know that there have been some enhancements, but there's still others are needed. And as we continue to develop, I would hope that we would then continue in terms of our build out, our plans, a 3 to 5 year plan that would help us in terms of our overall facilities. The enhanced budgeting piece, the enhanced facilities, the likewise enhance the overall and well-roundedness of our student athletes. And with that, I appreciate the opportunity to share some comments. And I wholeheartedly endorse and support the comments that Vice President made. And thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the student athletes at Texas Southern University. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Hannah James. Chairman Myers, that concludes the update from athletics. I'll be happy to take any questions or wait for I know you're going to have some comments to weigh in as well.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I wanted not only the board to hear the success out of the program and why that I thought it would be good to hear from the academic oversight individual on the subject. One point here is that I think that it needs to be noted here that the GPA within the department is higher than the overall GPA of the student body. One of the things that my takeaway from that is looking at some of the processes that are in place within that system to get that result, and how can we potentially utilize those across the campus for students who want to utilize those tools for their own benefit there at the university, and not necessarily just have it locked in at the athletic department. And I recognize why in the athletic department certain programs are in place, obviously, because you got kids practicing in the morning and in the evening. They need to manage time. They need to manage the academic side of the equation, just like they need to manage the athletic side of the equation. But time management, along with a structure that's in place to assist in that process, is the piece that I hope that we can look at down the road to potentially see. It may or may not be, but I think it's something of a discussion point that, those tools that'll be utilized there, it potentially could be utilized in other aspects of the university. So that was my initial thought. And I want to thank you both for bringing this type of news to the forefront, because sometimes we get into speaking on any and everything else, but we're not hearing all of the good aspects of what's taking place across the university. And this is a good aspect of the university, and this needs to come to the forefront, just like many other good things that we're doing at the university. So I want to thank you both for taking out the time to tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Thank you, sir.
Any comments from the other regions?
Just a brief comment. And what drives the students also is the fact that they have the rule of no pass, no play. So there will have to be something that drives the general student body as well.
Mm-hmm. No pass, no play. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Grazer. What we're going to do now, we're going to go into the audit committee report with Regent Rose, but I want to make one more adjustment to the agenda. I would like to move the president's report and place it after the facilities report, after the executive session. So at the end of this committee report, we'll take a 5-minute break. We'll go into the executive session, and then after the executive session, we'll go into the facilities report, and then at the end of that facilities report, we'll have the president's report. If everybody's okay with that small change in the agenda. Excuse me. So, Regent Rose, will you take us into the audit committee report?
Okay. The audit committee has one informational item that will be presented by Mrs. Charlotte Parker Thompson. Mrs. Parker Thompson?
Yes. Thank you, Audit Committee Chair, Regent Marilyn Rose. To the Audit Committee, our Board Chairman, Regent Myers. To the Board of Regents and President Hewitt, all guests. We have informational item for you from the Audit Standing Committee and the Department of Internal Audit Assurance and Compliance Services. We want to alert you to external activities that are taking place with regard to our activities for the fiscal period. Next slide, please, for the person that is navigating the show. The Texas State Auditor's Office has selected the university for the single statewide audit that's formally known as the A133 audit of the Student Financial Assistance Cluster for fiscal year 2020. And the last full audit of the Student Financial Assistance Cluster was in fiscal year 2016, and we have addressed with the board over those subsequent years prior year audit finding areas, and the ones that remained as of the close of fiscal year 2019 were in the areas of cost of attendance, verification, and general controls around access requirements. Those areas with the full audit of the cluster in 2020 will be revisited, and the State Auditor's Office is currently in their planning and risk assessment process. So they have begun the data gathering as well as the performance of various entities, as well as Regent Rose as the audit committee chair, as well as the oversight agent for the fraud program at the institution. Those activities have taken place and will continue from a data gathering perspective throughout the summer. Their on-site field work is scheduled for October of 2020. Additionally, the third-party service provider for fiscal year 2020, as it relates specifically to the annual financial review, has been selected as BKD LLP. They are also in their preliminary risk assessment, data gathering, and planning process, and they will continue their risk assessment activities and evaluation of the system of internal controls from June 22nd through July 3rd. They will return at the close of the fiscal year in October of 2020 to complete the specific testing processes and attestation of our financial statements. Next slide, please. The Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board identified a series of entities for follow-up and or remedial audits specific to campus space planning, E&G space utilization, etc. And the institution, Texas Southern, is on that list for a remedial audit. In light of COVID-19, however, the coordinating board, by way of their peer review team, has allowed for the deferral or deferment of the revisitation of those entities, and thus Texas Southern is slated for a remedial audit / return visit in 2021. We are projecting the second quarter of the calendar year in 2021. However, it is important for us to note that the activities are in progress with respect to the comprehensive plan of action around campus space planning in particular. Some of the items per that detailed plan that have been completed include, but is not limited to, the establishment of the campus space planning committee and subcommittees, the implementation and rollout of a change management policy as it relates specifically to E&G space and space utilization, the training of the executive committee, our building managers, our additional duty safety officers as it relates to, again, campus space planning, E&G space, and change management. The current in-progress activities include the inventory, the space inventory and utilization, the staffing of the campus space planning office, and implementation and utilization of the Ad Astra application for space utilization and planning requirements. And again, we wanted to reiterate to you that the peer review team from the coordinating board is scheduling to revisit the institution in 2021. There is a relatively new team within the coordinating board around this area, as well as a new team within TSU that includes our Vice President for Administration and Finance and Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Lockridge. And so the immediate future does entail some direct sessions with that new team to address where we are within the comprehensive plan of action. Additionally, with regard to our in-progress items, from an audit and assurance perspective, we continue to perform relevant testing around admissions and enrollment activities, as well as the state funding and federal funding activities for various enrollees from the 2017 through 19 cohorts. From an institutional compliance perspective, there is support that institutional compliance provides to the Title IX Governance Committee, as well as there is a focus that they have at this time around research compliance facilitated support, specifically as it relates to time and effort reporting and monitoring. The vital records inventory is currently in progress by our records management officer to comply with our records retention policies and schedule. And we are about to initiate our risk assessment process that is the initial step of the internal audit planning and establishment of the plan for fiscal 2021. And so the board can expect, as well as process owners, etc., for our auditable entities, and there are about 100 to 105 of those. So the initiation of that risk assessment process entails the commission of a general business process risk assessment survey or questionnaire, as well as a fraud risk assessment survey and questionnaire. There will be some alignment, if you will, with the external entities that are evaluating TSU at this time as they are going through those processes as well. So selective information from the activities will be available to them as well. Do we have any questions, feedback, or comments with respect to the informational update from Audit, Assurance, and Compliance?
No.
Any comments? No?
No comments.
No comments? Okay, this ends the presentation for the audit committee.
Is there anything else, Regent Rose, is that it from the committee?
Yes. We had one
Okay, thank you.
informational item. That concludes it.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Ms. Parker Thomas for the report.
Thank you very much.
Regents, what I would like to do at this point is to take a 5-10 minute break here, go into executive session, come out of executive session, go into the the facilities committee, and then the president's report following that. If everyone is okay with that, and excuse me, hold on 1 second, please. Okay. Okay, the board will now join, and we will go into executive session under Texas Government Code 551-071, 551-072, 551-073, and 551-074. This meeting is hereby adjourned at approximately 12:01 p.m. Thank you.